What's there to be alarmed with about Celestial Venerable Yu's death? The old bull continued to walk and laugh to himself. These people of the ancient times have never seen a dead person before. My head is going to explode from the Celestial Venerable Yu is dead? Celestial Venerable Yu is dead. He couldn't resist giving off a shout and couldn't care about calling Qin Mu and Founding Emperor. He hurriedly rushed out of the magnificent floor, and the racket outside still hadn't stopped yet. Some people were bawling loudly, while others stood there with a stupefied look. Some people went to ask others, and when they confirmed the news, they collapsed onto the floor with a dazed look on their faces. The old bull's heart was flustered, and he felt that all the ancient predecessors that had come to attend the meeting had suddenly lost their backbone. He looked at everyone who was clamoring outside. When Celestial Venerable Yu was alive, this place was a golden age that was in the midst of reform, and when the death of Celestial Venerable Yu was released, everyone became like headless flies. A golden age that was about to dawn on them had suddenly dimmed. The death of a great leader was simply too huge of a blow to the people of this era. The old bull's heart was also blank. How did he just die like this? How could he just die like this? It's impossible, right? It's a joke, right? This joke has been taken too far. Footsteps came from his back as Qin Mu, Founding Emperor, and Celestial Venerable Ling walked over. Their faces were also blank. From the building, they had also heard the cries and racket outside. The news of Celestial Venerable Yu's death had also struck them with an unimaginable impact. Qin Mu and Founding Emperor had time traveled to this era, and they hadn't had much interaction with Celestial Venerable Yu. Even though they had only talked once, they had quite a good impression of him. They were also very respectful to Celestial Venerable Yu, and felt that he was the leader of the ancient times that would be able to control heaven and earth, bringing the life forms after the beginning to create a new era. They had extremely high evaluations of Celestial Venerable Yu. Yet this young leader that was waiting for the time to show his life's work had just suddenly died like this. Qin Mu and Founding Emperor couldn't accept this. Celestial Venerable Ling was even more unable to accept this. Qin Mu and Founding Emperor didn't interact much with Celestial Venerable Yu, but she had grown up listening to the legends of Celestial Venerable Yu. When she met him afterward, Celestial Venerable Yu was like a brother that took care of her and gave her encouragement. After she opened up the 6 Directions Divine Treasure and changed to research the non-existence of time, wanting to prove it with divine art, Celestial Venerable Yu didn't feel that her research would succeed and felt that she had taken the wrong path. However, he still treated her extremely well. The death of Celestial Venerable Yu was a very huge blow to her. Her face turned pale and she stumbled forward. Qin Mu said with a low voice, "Follow after her and see what happened." The 3 of them hurriedly followed after Celestial Venerable Ling through the sea of people in front. There were people everywhere in the side palace, and they were all in sorrow. Some half-gods were also looking around in the sky. Why would Celestial Venerable Yu suddenly die? Founding Emperor said with a low voice, "Divine arts practitioners can't kill an existence like him. He could only be killed if a half-god or an ancient god made their move, am I right?" Qin Mu thought of something else and he pondered. Why was Celestial Venerable Yu killed before he announced the method to become a god? Unless getting rid of him is getting rid of the method to become a god. The old bull whispered, "Could Celestial Venerable Yu be faking his death? If he faked his death, he would be able to stir the conflict between half-gods, humans, and the celestial heavens." Qin Mu and Founding Emperor shook their heads. The old bull was puzzled. Qin Mu explained, "There's no meaning to fake his death in front of the celestial heavens. With Earth Count and Heaven Duke, he can't fake his death at all. His soul won't be able to escape from Yudu's control, and he won't be able to hide from Heaven Duke. He is really dead," Founding Emperor said. "Furthermore, if he just wants to stir conflict, he doesn't need to fake his death. There's more reason for him to spread out the method to become a god, and that's because after it's spread, there will definitely be conflicts between the new gods and the ancient gods. These conflicts will definitely accumulate as time goes on. This concerns the problem of splitting benefits. New gods would want more benefits, and the ancient gods would be reluctant to give up their benefits. Conflicts will naturally arise. He is such an intelligent man, so he has no need to use the method of faking death. Furthermore, by faking his death," he didn't continue speaking. and it was obvious he had some qualms. However, Qin Mu didn't care and just continued his words. Furthermore, by faking his death, he is no doubt handing the position of the leader out. He won't do this kind of thing that would benefit other people by giving his own hard work to them instead. Founding Emperor gave him a look and was full of worries. He said with a low voice, "We are outsiders after all, we shouldn't be too involved in this era. We have only come to this era for several days, but I can already feel the darkness pouring forth and dangers lurking in every corner." Qin Mu shook his head and said, "By existing in the past, we are already the past. No matter what we do, when we return to the present, we will realize what we did in the past is the history that has already happened." Veins popped out on Founding Emperor's forehead, and his voice was slightly hoarse. "You want to create trouble again? Must you force me to lay my hands on you?" The old bull didn't know what they were talking about and was very puzzled. However, Qin Mu and Founding Emperor understood each other very well. What they said about benefiting others and the darkness pouring forth were both referring to someone. What they meant was after Celestial Venerable Yu dies, who would benefit the greatest? After the leader dies, the one that would take over Celestial Venerable Yu's position as leader would be the one who benefits the most. Once the reformer was dead, and there was no path to become God, the ancient gods would benefit the most. Celestial Venerable Yu kept running east, and since he had to attend to the people coming for the meeting, he had to coordinate the half-gods and the humans, and even bribe the powers in the celestial heavens, so he rarely had time to rest. He stayed in the slow-winding pavilion in the Jade Pool small construction, and at this moment the slow-winding pavilion was already filled with people. Celestial Venerable Hua and Son of Heaven Yin were currently guarding the door, and Celestial Venerable Hua had an expression of sorrow and anger. He stared at everyone and prohibited them from coming forward. Celestial Venerable Ling squeezed forward and asked with a hoarse voice, "Is it true?" Celestial Venerable Hua choked and nodded. "They are all inside. Celestial Venerable Yu is trying to summon the soul to see if he could be saved. Celestial Venerable Hao has already sent a memorial to His Majesty and invited Earth Count to return his soul." Qin Mu looked at Son of Heaven Yin, and Son of Heaven Yin stood there with a blank gaze. He seemed to be at a loss and was spacing out. His pupils suddenly contracted rapidly as he stared at his hands. 2 drops of tears dripped onto his palms. Celestial Venerable Ling rushed into the slow-winding pavilion. Qin Mu, Founding Emperor, and the old bull were also planning to enter the slow-winding pavilion when they were stopped by Celestial Venerable Hua. Son of Heaven Yin came back to his senses and he also hurriedly raised his hands to block. He said apologetically, "Brother Qin, Brother Mu, Celestial Venerable Yu has died inside. You guys can't enter." Celestial Venerable Hua, "Let them in." Celestial Venerable Ling's voice rang out. The attainments in their paths, skills, and divine arts are very high. They might just be able to find clues. Celestial Venerable Hua hesitated, and he put down his arm. He looked at Qin Mu with red eyes and said, "If you can find any clues, I won't hate you anymore." Qin Mu nodded his head and said, "I'll do my best." They walked into the slowing winding pavilion. The pavilion was built on a lake on the island. It overlooked the lake and below was the great waves on the lake's surface. This place looked very elegant. That was because this was where Celestial Empress resided, so the slow winding pavilion was also much larger than ordinary constructions. It was also very wide inside. Qin Mu and the 3 of them walked into this building, and they saw the blood on the ground. This window was busted open, and there were traces of divine arts left on the walls. Celestial Venerable Yu's corpse laid under the window, and he was lying against the window. His head hung down and his limbs were limp. Celestial Venerable Hao, Celestial Venerable Yun, Celestial Venerable Yu, and Celestial Venerable Yu were all here. Celestial Venerable Hao was holding onto a divine hound which was sniffing around. Celestial Venerable Yu raised his hands, and his vital chi poured out. He lifted Celestial Venerable Yu's corpse into the air and 3 feet off the ground. The devil mask on the back of this youth's head started crying, but Celestial Venerable Yu still remained emotionless as usual. Qin Mu looked at the floating Celestial Venerable Yu, and his bones had basically been completely broken. There was no bone that was unscathed, and someone had smashed his bones with heavy blows. When he floated in the air, there was a peculiar sense of helplessness. From the external injuries, it wasn't just one person that attacked him. Qin Mu walked around Celestial Venerable Yu and examined his injuries. He didn't go too close, but he could clearly see the injuries on his body. However, the most lethal injuries weren't from the broken bones, it was from the back of his heart. Someone suddenly attacked him from the back and severely injured him. Qin Mu slowly circled around, and pictures were already forming in his mind. That person had suddenly attacked from the back, and because he was afraid of leaving traces behind, he didn't use the best divine arts he had. Instead, he had purely used the strength of the corporeal body. With the first strike, he used his terrifying strength to shatter Celestial Venerable Yu's heart. He then avoided Celestial Venerable Yu's attack and circled quickly around Celestial Venerable Yu. With a series of attacks to the corporeal body, it was like a huge hammer smashing onto Celestial Venerable Yu's corporeal body and smashed his bones into pieces. The divine art marking on the wall of the slow-winding pavilion belongs to Celestial Venerable Yu. Qin Mu looked towards the wall. Celestial Venerable Yu must have trusted the person extremely. Therefore, he had a chance to sneak an attack on him. Furthermore, their cultivation shouldn't have much difference. Celestial Venerable Yu's cultivation was stronger, but the opponent's corporeal body was much stronger than him. He attacked back, but he had already lost the upper hand and got his heart shattered. Furthermore, his opponent had also closed in on him. To be closed in by a strong practitioner of the battle technique school, how terrifying was that? Qin Mu cultivated battle techniques himself, so he knew this point very well. However, the thing that truly took Celestial Venerable Yu's life wasn't the injuries on the corporeal body. Qin Mu's heart stirred slightly. A drop of fresh blood floated over, and layers swirled in pupils. He just opened up 8 heavens, and a few miniature divine art runes inside the blood were quickly wiped out. These were the traces left behind by the opponent's divine arts. Celestial Venerable Yu doesn't have any traces of spell divine art on his corporeal body, but there are divine art runes in his blood. This means that the opponent still used his divine art, but the divine art wasn't targeted at the corporeal body. So what was the divine art targeted at? Suddenly, cryptic Yuda language sounded out, and Qin Mu's heart stirred. He looked towards Celestial Venerable Yu. That youth was currently executing Yudu divine art, and chanting the ancient Yudu language as he tried to summon the soul of Celestial Venerable Yu, calling his soul back from Yudu. His Yudu language wasn't bad, but it was still slightly lacking in Qin Mu's ears. After all, Celestial Venerable Yu still hadn't entered Yudu yet, and become the benevolent saintly king equal to heaven. Celestial Venerable Yu's eyes were blood red, and the Yudu language became Messier and Messier. Even though his expression was calm, his heart was churning from the huge waves. His heart was messed up, and furthermore, his attainments were still too shallow. Even if his heart wasn't messed up, he couldn't summon Celestial Venerable Yu's soul back from Yudu. I still can't. Celestial Venerable Yu suddenly coughed up blood and knelt on the ground. He started to spasm, and he gave off whines from his throat. He gritted his teeth. I still can't. He curled up and his body trembled. He choked. I still can't. I can't save Mother. I also can't save Big Brother. I still can't do anything. He was very indifferent to everyone and even Celestial Venerable Yu. He never showed him any affection, and yet it was always Celestial Venerable Yu that was taking care of him. He had long treated Celestial Venerable Yu as his only kin left in this world. Right at this moment, a warm voice rang out in his mind. I'll say, and you will chant. Celestial Venerable Yu was startled, and he heard that voice in his head ringing out again. That was incomparably ancient and pure Yudu devil language. It was so profound and so marvelous that he felt as if Earth Count had personally descended. Celestial Venerable Yu stood up again and chanted along with that voice. Yudu devil chi came rolling in from the surroundings, and the ground of the slow winding pavilion turned into darkness, revealing a deep space. That was Yudu. His voice traveled throughout the entire Yudu, and searched for the soul of Celestial Venerable Yu. To everyone in the slow winding pavilion, Celestial Venerable Yu didn't look like a youth any longer. Instead, he was like a god who controlled the rule of Yudu and was summoning back the dead. Founding Emperor's heart stirred, and he looked at Qin Mu who was beside him. He felt Qin Mu's consciousness sending out waves, and it was a kind of marvelous connection. He could feel that Qin Mu's consciousness was connecting with Celestial Venerable Yu. Celestial Venerable Yu's paths, skills, and divine arts were still very rough earlier, and he couldn't communicate with Yudu yet. Now he was actually able to send his voice throughout Yudu. It was obviously not because of Celestial Venerable Yu. It was Qin Mu imparting to him a profound Yudu divine art in secret. He even knows Yudu divine arts. What more does he know? As founding emperor thought until here, a gate gradually rose from the darkness. A gate of heaven influence stood upright in the pavilion and gave off sinister devil chi. After a moment, Qin Mu sighed and cut off the connection with Celestial Venerable Yu. Celestial Venerable Yu's soul isn't in Yudu. His soul has dispersed. Now I know what the divine art from that person that killed him was for. His heart dimmed. To destroy his soul. Celestial Venerable Yu suddenly cried out like a wild beast, suppressing his roar. He spasmed again and started foaming from the mouth. Qin Mu went forward, and his fingers tapped quickly to stabilize his spirit. He helped him up and let him sat by the door. "Thank you," Celestial Venerable Yu said softly as he grabbed Qin Mu's hands and looked at the lake out the door. Qin Mu was stunned. Celestial Venerable Yu raised his head and looked at his face with a dazed expression. "Thank you." In the slow winding pavilion, Celestial Venerable Hao's voice rang out. "Now that Celestial Venerable Yu is dead, what about the Jade Pool meeting?" Founding Emperor came to Qin Mu's back and whispered, "Whoever imparts the method to become a god in this meeting, that is the murderer." Qin Mu slowly straightened his back, and Celestial Venerable Hao's voice rang out. "A few days ago, Celestial Venerable Yu passed down the method to become a god to me. Even though he has met an unfortunate end, his legacy will still live on and be brought to a greater height." The corners of Qin Mu's eyes twitched and twitched again. He turned his head with difficulty. A huge hand pressed down on his shoulder. It was firm and strong. Founding Emperor suppressed his voice and said, "It's not related to us. Is there no more righteousness left in this world?" Qin Mu seemed to have a smile that was yet not a smile. A cry that was yet not a cry. Founding Emperor said solemnly, "The things in the past have no righteousness, only the future has. We are currently located in history, and this is something that has already happened. No matter what you do, it's not upholding righteousness. Only in the future is your time to uphold righteousness. You should understand what I'm saying." Qin Mu nodded his head and said with a stupefied tone, "You understand." Founding Emperor slowly let go and said, "Even in history, every choice you make can lead to your death. If even such an outstanding person like Celestial Venerable Yu is dead, you will only die if you participate." Qin Mu nodded his head. "I understand." Founding Emperor let out a sigh of relief and said, "Even though I don't know what grudge you have with me, I feel you aren't a bad person. You shouldn't die here." Qin Mu's expressionless face slowly melted, and he revealed a smile. "Thank you. Actually, I'm already satisfied to be able to meet you. My trip isn't wasted," Founding Emperor said. "To be able to meet the 7 Celestial Venerables and someone like you, I also feel my trip isn't wasted. According to what you said, there should still be 1 to 2 months' time, right? In these 2 months, let us quietly witness this history. Even though Celestial Venerable Yu is dead, his method of becoming a god will still be passed down. Isn't that the reason why we have come here?" Qin Mu nodded his head and said in a daze, "All right." Founding Emperor still felt slightly uneasy, and he said to the old bull, "You are his senior brother, you are more rational than he is, you should know what to do. This is the ancient god's celestial heavens. Even you can't be reckless. If you are reckless, there will be great danger." The old bull hesitated and nodded his head. "Don't worry, I'll look after him." Celestial Venerable Hao's voice rang out and spread throughout the Jade Pool small construction. "Celestial Venerable Yu is dead. The murderer has yet to be discovered, but he's hiding among us. Everyone, I have already sent up a memorial to His Majesty Celestial Emperor, requesting His Majesty to track down the murderer and deal with him, returning justice to Celestial Venerable Yu, returning justice to all of the divine arts practitioners in the world." The Jade Pool's small construction was silent, and suddenly soft crying voices sounded out, and the cries coming from the silence were incomparably stifling. Celestial Venerable Hao was furious, and he said loudly, "Everyone, I will definitely not let off that murderer, and I will tear him into pieces." Celestial Venerable Yu's blood shall not flow for nothing. Don't worry. Believe in the celestial heavens. Believe in His Majesty. His voice slowly grew low, but it still traveled clearly into everyone's ears. Even though Celestial Venerable Yu is dead, his path won't die. Celestial Venerable Yu and I are best friends, and he has already passed down the method to become a god to me. He must have known misfortune would strike, and thus, he taught me the method to become a god beforehand so he wouldn't leave behind any regrets. For now, let us first mourn for Celestial Venerable Yu and let him rest in peace. His voice became lower and lower. He was like an older brother and also like a father. It's a pity that the heavens are jealous of outstanding talent. The funeral will last for 10 days, and I will personally keep watch beside Brother Yu. After 10 days, I will pass down the method to become a god. His voice gradually became lower, and his cries came out. Brother Yu. Qinmu looked at Celestial Venerable Hao, who was lying on Celestial Venerable Yu's body and wailing. Qinmu pulled back his gaze and looked at Son of Heaven Yin, who was still looking at his own hands. Qinmu closed his eyes, and after a moment, he opened his eyes with a bright gaze. When Founding Emperor saw him like this, he revealed a worried look. In Celestial Heaven's meeting, numerous ancient gods were discussing matters. The body of the Celestial Emperor was huge, and the rays behind his head were giving off 10,000 rays of sunlight. To be able to discuss matters here, they were ancient gods with high and respected positions. Even ancient gods like the Great Sun Sovereign and the 5-element Star Sovereigns didn't have the right to join. Suddenly, an ancient god came over in a hurry to report. Your Majesty, Celestial Venerable Yu of the human race has been murdered. He died in the Jade Pool small construction. Celestial Venerable Hao has sent a memorial up to report this matter to His Majesty. Celestial Venerable Yu is dead? Celestial Emperor was astonished and said, Present it. That ancient god walked forward and presented Celestial Venerable Hao's memorial. Celestial Emperor took a look and closed the memorial. Celestial Venerable Yu has been killed by a villain. It's truly a pity. I was still full of hope for him. His talent was outstanding, and he had a sense of propriety. I was still waiting to see the golden age that he would be creating for me, and never would I expect him to be assassinated. Earth Count. In the darkness, Earth Count bowed slightly. Your Majesty, Celestial Emperor said. Celestial Venerable, you can't die just like this. His soul should have gone to Yudu, right? Bring his soul over and ask for the whole story. Earth Count's body sank, and after a moment, he reappeared and shook his head. Celestial Venerable Yu is not in Yudu. Celestial Emperor frowned slightly and asked Goddess of Heavenly Yin. Goddess of Heavenly Yin. Celestial Venerable Yu has most likely become a broken soul. Is his broken soul over at your place? Goddess of Heavenly Yin was currently sitting in Heaven Duke's shadow, and after a moment, she replied, Your Majesty, Celestial Venerable Yu's broken soul isn't in my Heavenly Yin world. Celestial Emperor sighed. His soul has most likely dispersed. Heaven Duke. Have you seen the site where Celestial Venerable Yu was harmed? Heaven Duke shook his head. Xuandu is always supervising all worlds, but the Jade Pool is Celestial Empress's residence. I can't shine there. Celestial Emperor was silent for a moment. Pass down my order, summon Heavenly Sight and Earthy Hearing Generals. They are to investigate this matter strictly and find out the true murderer who murdered Celestial Venerable Yu. As you command. Celestial Venerable's funeral hall was erected, and Celestial Venerable Hao personally kept watch. The divine arts practitioners of all the worlds walked up and bade farewell to this young man that created the cultivation system of divine arts. Qinmu, Founding Emperor, and the old bull also came to bid farewell to Celestial Venerable Yu's corpse. When Founding Emperor saw Qinmu not doing anything, only then did he put his heart down. He must have listened to my words. This is for the best. I was truly afraid he would create huge trouble. Qinmu looked at Celestial Venerable Hao. Celestial Venerable Hao seemed to have slimmed down these few days. 10 days of keeping watch quickly passed by. The two ancient gods from the celestial heavens also brought a bunch of half-gods to search, but to no avail. Celestial Venerable Yu was buried beside the celestial river. The celestial river surged and flowed non-stop. Finally, the day came for Celestial Venerable Hao to pass down his learning. Celestial Venerable Hao was full of vigor. and he first imparted the method for half-gods to cultivate into humans. He was truly an outstanding genius, and when he solved the problem of half-gods being unable to cultivate, he raised waves of cheers. Founding Emperor had originally planned to go to the side palace and witness this grand occasion that would influence countless years after today. However, Qin Mu, the old bull, and Celestial Venerable Ling had all remained in the magnificent floor, so he hesitated. He said to the old bull, "You must look after him and stop him from creating any trouble. If he still creates trouble, Celestial Venerable Hao will push the blame of murdering Celestial Venerable You to him." The old bull nodded his head. "I understand." Only then did Founding Emperor leave. Qin Mu took a glance at Celestial Venerable Ling, who was in a daze, and he took out his Taotai sack. He poured out the items in his sack and took out Buddha Vitality Crimson Chromium and, after quickly hammering, a coffin made from pure Buddha Vitality Crimson Chromium was forged. Celestial Venerable Ling looked at him in a daze. Qin Mu stuffed this coffin into the Taotai sack and quickly tidied things up. He took another glance at this young girl, and Celestial Venerable Ling was still staring at her with a lifeless gaze. "Senior brother, I'm going out for a while. I'll be back soon," Qin Mu said with a smile. The old bull was alarmed and asked, "What are you going to do? Don't be reckless." Qin Mu shook his head. "Don't worry, I won't be reckless," the old bull said. "I'll follow you." Qin Mu walked out, and the old bull was surprised. Qin Mu didn't walk to the main hall of the side palace, and instead he left the jade pool. He's not going to get rid of Celestial Venerable Hao. Qin Mu came to the shore of the Celestial River and found Celestial Venerable Yu's tomb. The old bull was even more puzzled. Qin Mu had already paid his respects to Celestial Venerable Yu, so why had he still come here? Qin Mu walked towards Celestial Venerable Yu's tomb and raised his 5 fingers towards the sky. The chunks of stone from the tomb loosened and parted into the surroundings. Ding! The nails in the coffin came off, and the lid of the coffin floated up. The corpse of Celestial Venerable Yu laid in the coffin gradually floated up. Qin Mu surrounded Celestial Venerable Yu's corpse to move quickly, and used all kinds of creation mudras to smack all area of Celestial Venerable Yu's body. Snapping sounds came from Celestial Venerable Yu's body as his broken bones started to reconnect. Broken bones inside his body actually merged back together, and his broken bones grew back. Not only that, the flesh and blood of his shattered heart were also reconstructing itself. Very quickly, his body no longer had any more injuries. This was creation technique. If it was attainments in the path of creation, Qin Mu was enough to top then and now. And finally Qin Mu's palm grasped onto a mudra, and he gently placed it over Celestial Venerable Yu's heart. His palm force burst forth, and Celestial Venerable Yu's cold and stiff body suddenly jolted. The blood that had stopped flowing suddenly started to flow again. Next, the old bull heard a heartbeat from Celestial Venerable Yu's body. It was followed by the second and third beat. He revealed a look of disbelief. He looked at Qin Mu, and then he looked at Celestial Venerable Yu. His mind was completely blown. Qin Mu opened his Taotai sack and took out that coffin he had just forged. The coffin lid opened up and Celestial Venerable Yu gently floated into the coffin. The coffin closed again and flew back into Taotai sack. Qin Mu turned back towards the jade pool. The old bull hurried after him, and he turned back to see the tomb of Celestial Venerable Yu being restored to its original condition as the stones reassembled themselves. No abnormality could be seen from the restored tomb. Nyo Sanduo hesitated for a moment, and he finally couldn't resist asking, "Junior brother, there's no use even if you revive Celestial Venerable Yu's corpse. He is still dead after all. His soul has already dispersed." Qin Mu didn't reply to him and just kept walking forward. He returned to the magnificent floor and smiled at Celestial Venerable Ling, who was still in a daze. "Sister Ling, keep this coffin properly." He took out Celestial Venerable Yu's coffin and placed it in front of Celestial Venerable Ling. Celestial Venerable Ling's lifeless gaze stirred as she looked at the coffin. "When you meet Celestial Venerable Yu again, pass this coffin to him and get him to hide it in Yudu. Tell him in the future, a person named Mu will find him." Qin Mu had a warm expression and said gently, "Mu will tell him I understand I'm back. Once he says that, he can take out this coffin." Sister Ling, I'm going to go. He got up and walked out of the floor. Celestial Venerable Ling stood up and asked with a hoarse voice, "Where are you going?" Qin Mu stopped and turned back with a radiant smile. "To finish what I should have finished. Big sister. Let us meet again in the future." He walked out of the floor and raised his head to look at the sky. The sun was blazing above his head. Celestial Emperor has sent a decree. Mu Qing Qin Kai, their paths and skills are profound, and they are talents with abilities to rule the world. They are capable of supporting the ruler in governing the world, and so they are hereby conferred. Mi Qing, title Celestial Venerable Mu, Qin Kai, Celestial Venerable Qin. In the side palace of the Jade Pool small construction, Celestial Venerable Hao read Celestial Emperor's decree and said with a smile, "Congratulations, Brother Qin and Brother Mu. From now on, there will be 9 Celestial Venerables. It's a pity." His expression dimmed, and he seemed to recall Celestial Venerable Yu that had passed away. "However, Brother, you probably can't see this anymore. Brother Mu? Celestial Venerable Mu? Celestial Venerable Qin, where is Celestial Venerable Mu?" Founding Emperor said. "He is in magnificent floor, he didn't come over." Celestial Venerable Hao said with a smile, "Congratulations, Celestial Venerable Qin. From today onwards, both Brother Qin and Brother Mu will be Celestial Venerables. Now, let me talk about the method to become a god that Brother Celestial Venerable you had created." Right at this moment, his eyes stared at the door of the hall. His mouth was agape, and he was speechless. Everyone was waiting for his lecture when they saw his expression. They all turned, and the hall was silent. At the door of the side palace, Celestial Venerable Yu stood there silently, and he looked at Celestial Venerable Hao across the room. After a moment, Celestial Venerable Yu took a step forward and walked towards Celestial Venerable Hao. He said indifferently, "Celestial Venerable Hao, let me explain the method of becoming a god that I have created personally." Founding Emperor's mind was blown as he looked at this Celestial Venerable Yu that was walking by his side. His heart was flustered. "Impossible, he can't be alive. Niu Ben." He looked outside the hall, and the old bull was standing there helplessly. He thought to himself, "Founding Emperor, I'm sorry, I also can't stop him. He has the temper of a bull." There were divine arts practitioners in the main hall of the side palace, and the main hall was truly huge. Could easily contain 10,000 people. At that moment, everyone in the hall was looking at the man who had come back from the dead. He was the leader of the people in the past, and his sudden death made countless people weep. His accident also made people wonder if it was the act of ancient gods or half-gods. And now the person who had come back from the dead appeared in front of everyone else. Everyone parted to make way, and they looked at him silently as he walked towards Celestial Venerable Hao calmly. Suddenly, everyone in the crowd murmured, and the murmuring got louder and louder. "Celestial Venerable Yu!" Someone suddenly shouted loudly, "Celestial Venerable Yu!" Even more people began to shout, "Celestial Venerable Yu! Celestial Venerable Yu!" Waves of sound emerged, and each shout was louder than the previous one. The shouts that suddenly burst forth caused the air inside the main hall of the Celestial Empress side palace to surge, and it caused the sound waves to rise into the sky, dispersing the clouds. More and more divine arts practitioners joined in, and they only shouted Celestial Venerable Yu's name. In their eyes, the man that was walking up the altar was their leader. It was him that had brought all the races to slaughter out a path of survival. Qin Mu was slightly stunned, and he slowed down his footsteps. He looked around at the enthusiastic people, and as a person from another world, he couldn't understand the fervent display of these people. In the hall, these divine arts practitioners were from all kinds of worlds, and they could be considered leaders in their own lower bounds, yet they could still follow another leader so fervently. It was truly hard for him to understand. What he didn't know was in the current celestial heavens, even though the civilization was prosperous, all of the worlds didn't have this kind of harmonious sight. Instead, dangers were running amok, and divine beasts that had the bloodlines of ancient gods were everywhere. Most of the humans and the people of the various races wore grass shoes and grass clothes. They wielded long spears made from wood, and they struggled to survive with difficulty. It was fine if they encountered normal wild beasts, but if they encountered a divine beast with the bloodline of an ancient god, They would have deaths and casualties, becoming the meal in the stomach of the half-gods. Even the weakest half-gods were much stronger than the human race. The danger wasn't only from here. There were also meteorological phenomena. Violent storms, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, and all kinds of natural disaster loomed over the primitive times. It was at this time when Celestial Venerable you opened up the spirit embryo divine treasure and allowed the weak race to have the power to protect themselves, to be able to fend off natural disasters and fend off half-gods. He was the leader of all humans, the leader of the weak race. On the altar of the side palace, Celestial Venerable Hao's gaze seemed to be a little flustered. He quickly came back to his senses and took a glance at Son of Heaven Yin, who wasn't far away. Son of Heaven Yin's face was pale, and he looked at the Celestial Venerable Yu, who was walking towards the altar in a daze. He was flustered and at a loss. Qin Mu walked up to the altar and walked up step after step. Celestial Venerable Hao, who was on the altar, was also at a loss. He didn't walk down from the divine altar, but he had already slowly regained his composure. Looking at Qin Mu, who was walking up, he revealed a smile. Even though I know you are fake, I can't expose you. He had a smile on his face and he seemed to be excited. He thought to himself, you are already dead, your soul has already dispersed, it's impossible for you to revive. Who is this that is posing as you? This technique to change the structure of the corporeal body, to change the appearance and bearing, it's indeed marvelous. I can't expose you. If I expose, I would be exposed, others will know you died in my hands. However, you can expose yourself. The divine altar was very high, and everyone below could look up there. Qin Mu walked up to the altar, and Celestial Venerable Hao opened his arms wide, hugging him tightly. He was so agitated that he was choking on tears, but he was thinking of something else. The true Celestial Venerable Yu has imparted the method to become a god to me, but he has never imparted it to anyone else. You don't know the method to become a god, I can just wait and let you expose yourself. When that time comes, you will be the butcher that killed Celestial Venerable Yu and get stoned by everyone. He let go of Qin Mu and wiped his tears. Qin Mu laughed and said, Celestial Venerable Hao, why are you like this when I've come back from the dead? Please take a seat. Celestial Venerable Hao sat down, and his eyes were red. Brother Yu is still alive. I thought you were dead and even kept watch for 10 days burying you personally. Yet Brother Yu has suddenly appeared. You have surprised and delighted this foolish brother. Brother Yu, who assassinated you? Two very close people to me. Qin Mu said with a slight smile. One killed my corporeal body and the other destroyed my soul. Son of Heaven Yin's hands were shaking, and Celestial Venerable Hao's pupils contracted. Qin Mu suddenly moved, and under everyone's gaze, he punched right at the back of Celestial Venerable Hao's heart. He used this move to shatter my heart. Son of Heaven Yin was astonished. However, Celestial Venerable Hao stood there and didn't move. This was because that punch from Qin Mu had no force at all. Qin Mu's body moved as fast as lightning, and his strikes were quick and overbearing. Every punch and every kick was clear as day to let everyone see clearly. He used this move to shatter my ribs. He used this move to break my fingers. He snapped my arm like this. Qin Mu was as fast as lightning, and he quickly reenacted the scene where Celestial Venerable Yu was assassinated. Beads of cold sweat rolled down Celestial Venerable Hao's forehead, and he said with a smile, Brother Yu scared me. So how did the other person destroy Brother Yu's soul? Qin Mu's vital qi burst forth, and the sinister wind started to blow while the cloud turned dark. He was about to execute his divine art. Son of Heaven Yin saw the situation and suddenly collapsed onto the floor with a thump. He had fainted. Qin Mu tapped on Celestial Venerable Hao's forehead with a finger and said, The other person used this move to destroy my soul the moment my corporeal body died. Celestial Venerable Hao revealed a sincere smile and said cordially, Luckily Brother Yu hasn't died. Brother Yu is truly blessed by heavens. It's fortunate that you have returned in peace. Look, Chao Jin has even fainted from agitation. Since Brother Yu is here, I shall not take your credit. May Brother Yu tell us about the method that can let all living things become gods. Little brother will go down first. Qin Mu grabbed his wrist and laughed. Since I've already imparted the method of becoming a god to you, let us impart the method of becoming a god together. You shall talk about one section, and I will talk about another. Celestial Venerable Hao said in delight. How can I reject when Brother Yu is guiding me? In that case, let Brother Yu start with the introduction, and I'll continue with the second section. Qin Mu swept his sleeves and sat down. He signaled for Celestial Venerable Hao to take a seat too. Celestial Venerable Hao sat down and said with a smile, Brother Yu, please. Founding Emperor had already retreated to the door of the main hall subconsciously, and he moved close to the old bull. He whispered, If there's any change in the situation, you must save him. Nyo Sanduo hurriedly said. Why would there be a change in the situation? The Divine Bridge is connected to the Celestial Palaces. Junior Brother just needs to talk about letting the primordial spirit levitate heavenwards toward the Celestial Palaces, and he will pass. Celestial Venerable Hao can't expose him. Founding Emperor shook his head and said solemnly, Celestial Venerable Hao has ill intentions, and the reason why he wanted him to talk about the first section is to let him give the game away. You also know that the primordial spirit can levitate in the Celestial Palaces and become immortal like gods, to become equal to the ancient gods. However, there are no Celestial Palaces in the people of this era. The old bull was stunned. Beads of cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Founding Emperor said solemnly, The people of this era still haven't opened up the Celestial Palaces, and their divine bridge is merely a floating bridge. Celestial Venerable Yu's feat was to create a celestial palace from nothing. Now that he's dead, only Celestial Venerable Hao has mastered this technique of opening the Celestial Palace. Mu Qing, doesn't he know how to open up the Celestial Palace? If he knows, he will be another Celestial Venerable Yu. If he doesn't, he will be exposed. The old bull's heart gradually sank and he muttered, Why doesn't he just say that it was Celestial Venerable Hao that harmed him and just beat him to death? Why must he do such a thing like imparting the techniques? He has other intentions for going up the altar. He wants to restrain Celestial Venerable Hao and also let Celestial Venerable Hao pass down the method to become a god. This prevents the future civilization from having no method to become god, thus he can't get rid of Celestial Venerable Hao immediately. Founding Emperor suppressed his voice. However, Celestial Venerable Hao is also a formidable person. He saw through his intention. This person is sinister and will be my arch-nemesis. This is the ancient god's celestial heavens in the ancient times. There are half-gods and divine arts practitioners all around. If he can't answer, Celestial Venerable Hao doesn't need to attack. The other half-gods and divine arts practitioners would beat Mu Qing to death. What's more? He revealed a worried look and thought to himself, The Jade Pool is the garden of Celestial Empress. For Celestial Venerable Hao to dare kill Celestial Venerable Yu in Celestial Empress place, the water here is too deep. Celestial Venerable Hao is a half-god. A child from an ancient god and a human. Who is that ancient god? Mu Qing is too reckless. We are here this time to search for the marvel of the ancient times, and he's actually participating in it, putting himself in danger. On the altar, Qin Mu's vital qi soared out, and it was gorgeous. His vital qi transformed and formed the spirit embryo, 5 elements, 6 directions, 7 stars, celestial being, life and death and divine bridge, the 7 great divine treasures. By using vital qi to materialize them, he showed the marvel of the 7 great divine treasures to everyone. Exquisite algebra. Monk Celestial Venerable Yu's attainments in algebra is actually so high. A Taoist holding his compass raised his head and looked. He praised continuously and said to the monk beside him, As expected of Celestial Venerable Yu, he is about to enter the path with algebra. Truly marvelous beyond words. Can you see that his divine treasures are formed from algebra structures? On the side, the monk was currently begging. This senior brother, us senior and junior brothers have been starving for 2 days. Just see our fate and give 2 spirit pills. This algebra is useless to me. I only cultivate the heart. Qin Mu used his vital qi to construct the divine treasure, and it was exactly the model he had constructed with Su Shanghua and the rest. That was why it was remarkably true to life. His vital qi transformed into Celestial Venerable Yu's apparition, and he came to the top of the divine bridge. He was about to reach the end of the bridge. Founding Emperor became nervous. The most crucial time was now. If Qin Mu was unable to take out the method to become a god, Celestial Venerable Hao would accuse him of being an imposter, and would even push the blame of Celestial Venerable Yu's death to him. The Celestial Venerable Yu transformed from Qin Mu's vital qi came to the end of the bridge. Ian stopped. Founding Emperor's palms were covered in cold sweat. The people of the future only knows that once they cultivate to the divine bridge realm, their primordial spirit could levitate into the Celestial Palace. However, they didn't know where the Celestial Palace had come from. The method to open the Celestial Palace was long lost. The future people only knew the Celestial Palace existed, but they didn't know the reason why. They were the descendants of divine arts practitioners that opened up the Celestial Palace. Therefore, no matter if it was their divine treasures or Celestial Palace, they were always there. As long as they cultivated to a certain realm, they would be able to open up their divine treasures and soar into the Celestial Palace. They didn't need to think about the reason. This was the reason why Celestial Venerable Yu was great. Qin Mu naturally wouldn't know how to open up the Celestial Palace. If he didn't know, he would make a mistake on the very first move and take the blame for killing Celestial Venerable Yu. This was where the crux lay, and it was also the most dangerous place. How can we open up the Celestial Palace from nothing? Founding Emperor's brain worked fast, and all kinds of thoughts and ideas came rushing over. How did Celestial Venerable Yu open up the Celestial Palace? If he is able to, other people should also be able to. If he can create this technique, others can create such a technique too. How did he do it? Suddenly, a light flashed through his mind. Why must Celestial Venerable Yu host the meeting in the Jade Pool and announce the method to become a god? This isn't just a matter of borrowing power. There are also other reasons. Celestial palaces, celestial palaces. So that's it. He suddenly came to a realization. The arrangement of the celestial palaces that Celestial Venerable Yu opened is completely the same with the arrangement of the celestial palaces in the celestial heavens. Celestial Venerable Yu opened up the celestial palaces because when he was observing the construction of the celestial palace, he had the feeling to develop, he had the feeling to create. Divine treasures are to awaken the power in one's corporeal body, while the celestial palaces are. Just as he thought until here, he suddenly heard Qin Mu's voice from the top of the altar. Divine treasures are to awaken the power in one's corporeal body, while the celestial palaces are to awaken the power of a god in one's corporeal body. I name this huge realm celestial palaces. Founding Emperor's body trembled violently, and he raised his head to look at the youth in purple on the altar. It was like he was seeing another Celestial Venerable Yu. Celestial Venerable Yu's heart trembled violently, and he revealed a look of disbelief. And at this moment, Son of Heaven Ian had gradually woken up, and he managed to hear this sentence precisely. Fear struck him instantly, and he fainted once more. Opening up the celestial palaces requires mobilizing the power of the gods in the corporeal body. On the altar, Qin Mu used vital qi to transform into the visions inside the divine treasures. The sun and the moon lit up in his spirit embryo divine treasure, and his voice rang throughout the main hall of the side palace. He was calm and collected as he spoke. The spirit embryo divine treasure, great sun sovereign, and great moon sovereign. In the vision of those divine treasures, the 5 elements stars lit up again, and the 5 elements star sovereigns stood on their respective stars. 5 elements divine treasures: Saturn sovereign, Mars sovereign, Jupiter sovereign, Mercury sovereign, Venus sovereign. 6 directions divine treasure: Mother Earth, the earth in its devotion carries all things. 7 stars divine treasure: 7 stars aligned, combining the power of 7 gods. Celestial being divine treasure: stars in the sky, the star sovereigns of the stars, borrowing power from heaven Duke. Life and death divine treasure, which is also Yudu, the gods controlling the soul, borrowing power from earth count. Divine bridge divine treasure, the primordial spirit as the god among gods. Qin Mu used his vital qi to transform into the vision of divine arts. The rays from gods lit up, and that was him borrowing the power of numerous gods. The primordial spirit of the divine arts practitioner represented Celestial Emperor, who controlled all power. Once you achieve this step, borrow the power of the celestial heavens to let the gods return to their position, guiding over the power of the celestial heavens to imprint your celestial palace. Qin Mu gave a loud shout. In the apparition of the divine treasures, the gods lent their power, and the power grew larger and larger. The southern heavenly gate, jade pool, god execution stage, jade capital city, numinous sky hall, and emperor's throne of the ancient celestial heavens were forged by the power of the ancient gods. They guided the power over, and it gradually formed a celestial palace in front of the divine bridge. Everyone looked at this sight in a daze. The surroundings were silent and no one talked. The celestial palace was opened up just like this. Another incomparably grand and huge realm with multifarious scenes had appeared in everyone's eyes just like this. This was a great feat, a feat that could make humans and gods be on an equal level. A realm that would allow them to walk into a legendary era. After a long time, someone cheered, "Celestial Venerable You! Celestial Venerable You! Celestial Venerable You!" There were people cheering everywhere, and their voices shook the sky. Celestial Venerable How looked at this sight in a daze, and his heart felt a slight sorrow. I don't have such strong power to rally supporters. If he isn't Celestial Venerable You, how does he know the method to become a god? Could. A terrifying thought appeared in his heart, and he actually felt fear. Celestial Venerable You is really still alive? That's not right, that's not right, I clearly killed him and Yin Chaojin destroyed his soul, it's impossible for him to be still alive? Furthermore, that existence has already confirmed it, that existence can't be wrong. He felt his hair standing on end. If Celestial Venerable You was still alive, why didn't Celestial Venerable You just kill him directly? Was Celestial Venerable You afraid of that existence behind him? Or did Celestial Venerable You have an even greater plan? In this world, there weren't many people that scared him. Celestial Venerable You was one of them. In front of Celestial Venerable You, he always felt that he was lower than Celestial Venerable You, and even though he also had outstanding talent, he always felt inferior when he saw Celestial Venerable You. Thus, he had to get rid of him. He had to get rid of Celestial Venerable You to get rid of the god in his heart. And now this god that made him unable to breathe was coming back? He needs to die, he thought to himself. At this moment, Qin Mu's voice rang out. Celestial Venerable How, it's your turn. Qin Mu called out a few times, and only then did Celestial Venerable How return to his senses and give a forced smile. He began to talk and continued Qin Mu's method of opening the celestial palace. It was just that he wasn't focused and would pause occasionally as he spoke. After Brother Yu's method of opening the celestial palace, one could be able to achieve being equal to gods. They could be immortal. However, this is only the preliminary success. There are still waves of tests ahead. Because we are borrowing power from the ancient gods in the celestial heavens, we have to return it, or there will be predestined fate. The first test will be Southern Heavenly Gate. Only after crossing Southern Heavenly Gate does one truly stabilize one's celestial palace. This step is to borrow the power of the celestial heavens to turn the fake into real. Celestial Venerable How quickly stabilized his mind and said the cultivation method of the Southern Heavenly Gate that Celestial Venerable You had told him. Celestial Venerable How hadn't cultivated to Southern Heavenly Gate, and Celestial Venerable You also hadn't. However, as the founder of Celestial Palace, he had managed to determine some realms. His knowledge of this realm had also reached an astonishing height. Celestial Venerable How could only repeat Celestial Venerable Yu's words. Qin Mu continued and talked about the cultivation of the Jade Pool realm. After Jade Pool, Celestial Venerable How spoke about the dangers of the god execution stage. Qin Mu then talked about the marvel of cultivating to the Jade Capital realm. Celestial Venerable How then talked about the numinous sky realm. When he was done, Qin Mu talked about the Emperor's throne realm and completed the 7 great realms. Founding Emperor's heart sank. After finishing the 7 great realms of Celestial Palace, Mu Qing is probably going to make a move to kill him, right? He has already confirmed his identity as Celestial Venerable You. So if he pointed out that Celestial Venerable How and Son of Heaven Yin were the murderers that had killed him, the angry mob could just tear both of them apart. But Son of Heaven Yin didn't die, so what exactly happened? Who died? What changed? Just as he thought until here, Celestial Venerable How's voice came from the altar and he laughed. Brother, you left the last realm for me to explain, so I will take your place with reluctance. Let us talk about the realm above Emperor's throne, Celestial Heavens. Founding Emperor's mind was blown. He opened his eyes wide in disbelief. The 8th realm. There was actually an 8th realm. He had never heard of a celestial heavens realm above the emperor's throne realm. Nyo-Sandwa's mind was blank. From the past to the present, there were no records of this realm at all, and there weren't even rumors of it. Celestial Venerable You. On the altar, Qin Mu's expression was dim. He thought to himself, "You're truly Celestial Venerable You. I still can't be compared to him. His death is truly a pity. Such a person shouldn't be buried in history." On the altar, Celestial Venerable Hao's explanation was bumpy and full of mistakes, but he had roughly explained the whole gist of it. Celestial Palace was only one palace in the celestial heavens, and the celestial heavens had 36 celestial palaces. To surpass the emperor's throne realm would be to construct the celestial heavens and open up the 36 celestial palaces. Coming to the celestial heavens realm, it would be a huge improvement and leap, a qualitative leap. Yet there was no news about this realm in the future, and it was obviously lost through history. Celestial Venerable Hao finished explaining and blushed in shame. "Everyone, it's not that I'm not trying to be clear, but Brother Yu told me he hasn't opened up this realm completely as well." "Brother Yu, is that right?" Qin Mu stood up, and his face had no expression. It was terrifyingly calm. "That's right. Celestial heavens, this realm is too profound. I still haven't comprehended it until my death." Beads of cold sweat broke out on Celestial Venerable Hao's forehead. He secretly moved a step back and said with a smile, "Hasn't Brother Yu come back to life? The term until your death seems a little too harsh. My mother always admired you, and she will definitely be very happy to see you alive." The hidden meaning of his words was to make Celestial Venerable You not blow the matter up, and also to point out the existence behind him. However, he didn't know that Qin Mu didn't care about that at all. Celestial Venerable You might care for the greater good. But Qin Mu wasn't Celestial Venerable You. Even founding emperor couldn't change Qin Mu's mind. So what was Celestial Venerable Hao's mother? Right at this moment, an ancient god flew over and announced loudly, "The name of the celestial heavens is determined." His Majesty had determined on the name of the celestial heavens with Heaven Duke and Earth Count. The side palace broke out in an uproar, and everyone flooded out. They heard the voice of that ancient god passing above their heads and moving away into the distance. The celestial heavens will be named Dragon Han. This year will be the first year of Dragon Han. Founding emperor and the old bull's heart trembled violently. Was Dragon Han era finally beginning? 3 heavens of Dragon Han. Is it beginning from now? Qin Mu was slightly in a daze. That nursery rhyme from Crimson Light Realm. 3 heavens of Dragon Han. Crimson Light separated into 2. Today was the day they officially entered into Dragon Han era. He had a weird feeling in his heart. What was history? This is history. He was located in history and became a silhouette in the era. And in this silhouette, in the grand and vast celestial heavens, there were people celebrating everywhere. The majestic gods stood high above, and they smiled as they looked at the people celebrating happily below. Half-gods were flying in the air with dragons and phoenixes as symbols of good fortune. Everyone was running and spreading the news on the celestial river, and on pleasure boats, couples laid in each other embrace to look at the gorgeous divine arts in the sky. Those were divine arts released by the excited people, and they added color to the celestial heavens. The silhouette of this history presented the start of a golden age. Yet at this moment very few people would remember Celestial Venerable You. They were all celebrating, and who would remember that person that had truly pushed this era into the golden age? The person who was already lying in the coffin and would never see the golden age that was about to come. This world, is there no more righteousness? In the celebration, Qin Mu looked down at his own hands and started to chuckle. Founding emperor is right. This matter doesn't need justice. There's no righteousness. History doesn't need me to uphold justice. However, he raised his head and looked at the sky bustling with noise and excitement. His chuckles became loud, unrestrained laughter. But Celestial Venerable needs justice. History doesn't need justice, but the people in history need this justice. He grabbed his collar and tore down the purple robe that belonged to Celestial Venerable You. The purple robe floated in the wind and floated by the people that were celebrating. His chest was blazing with fury, and he laughed towards the sky. He laughed to his heart's content and to vent all his resentment. History won't give them justice, but I God *M can. I can F asterisk king give them this justice. I also F asterisk king need this justice. He wanted to drink so much. He wanted to hug a jar of wine and drink like butcher, to drink until he was intoxicated like Tian Shu, to lift his knives and kill. Even though he hadn't drank, he was already intoxicated as he walked towards Celestial Venerable Hao. Celestial Venerable Hao squeezed through the crowd and tried to avoid him. Founding Emperor and the old bull were outside to witness this exciting moment when a purple robe rolled in the wind. It floated towards the jade pool and landed in the sea. Celestial Venerable used purple robe. Founding Emperor was astonished, and he hurriedly turned his head. He grabbed the old bull's hand and asked in a hurry, "Where's Mu Qing? Where's Mu Qing?" The old bull was also searching for him urgently. He was still on the altar earlier. They should still be in the main hall, right? When the ancient god announced the name Dragon Han, he also walked out of the main hall. Founding Emperor dragged the old bull forward and said anxiously, "He has taken off his clothes because he wants to kill during the commotion. Go quickly, go. We have to find him before things blow up." The old bull moved his magic power, and Founding Emperor floated up uncontrollably. Both of them floated through the air. "Your magic power is shallow, let me bring you along," the old bull said solemnly. "Take note of the crowd below, we must find him." Founding Emperor surveyed the surroundings in a hurry and tried to find Qin Mu, an open and honest youth in green traveling, stubbornly saying there's male and female wind, with a drop of overwhelming aura, enjoying the powerful wind that brings along endless happiness. Qin Mu only felt his body becoming warmer and warmer. His blood was pumping furiously. "I want to be like Grandpa Butcher, fast knife, fine wine, good to sever heads." Just like him, being able to turn his heroism into poems in the war. It's a pity I don't have his literary talent. He is a great scholar, speaking his mind with poems, and his poems assisted Heaven Knife to sever the heads of pigs quickly. I'm still lacking. He followed Celestial Venerable Hao to the sea surface. The huge beasts and huge turtles swam under the sea surface, and only some huge fish were swimming comfortably in the air. Those were half-gods, the descendants of ancient gods. Celestial Venerable Hao continued to walk forward, and there were more and more half-gods surrounding him. Qin Mu also continued to walk forward. "But my knife is equally fast. My fists are equally heavy. I won't be slower than Grandpa Butcher when it comes to slaying evil." The jade pool was like a sea. To ancient gods with huge corporeal bodies, the jade pool was just like a pool to them. But to humans, this place was as vast as the sea. In fact, the jade pool still had another name, which was the Jade Sea. In the sea, divine turtles were carrying hallowed and sacred mountains on their backs as they roamed around in pleasure. There were also huge lotuses, and their petals were like mountains. They had a myriad of colors and looked brilliant. Coming to the jade pool, divine arts practitioners wouldn't find the jade pool too huge. Instead, they would find that they had shrunk countless times. In front, Celestial Venerable Hao had already stopped in his tracks. This place was far away from the jade pool small construction and the jade pool treasured island. Around him, half-gods walked over, and there were even some flying in the sky and some hidden in the clouds. There were also some hidden under the sea. When Qin Mu walked on the sea surface, he could see the bodies of huge beasts swimming past quickly. The scales were the same color as the ripples. "Celestial Venerable You, is it really you?" Celestial Venerable Hao looked at him walking over and suddenly sighed. With a solemn look on his face, he said, "It's weird to say this, but I actually hope you're really him, but I also know you shouldn't be him. You are already dead, you can't be alive. Under that kind of situation, how could you still be alive? Yet you are breathing and alive right in front of me. This makes me very puzzled." He revealed a dazed expression. "I clearly killed you and destroyed your soul, yet you can still come back from the dead. How did you do it?" In the sky, an ancient god with huge ears was currently listening in on everything that was happening in the jade pool. When he heard Celestial Venerable Hao's words, he suddenly shuddered and turned away. At the same time, the expression of a one-eyed god under the ground of the jade pool had a huge change. He tunneled out from the ground and soared into the sky. The two ancient gods met each other, and they had a weird expression when they saw each other. They were none other than Heavenly Hearing and Earthly Sight General that Celestial Emperor had dispatched to investigate this case. "Should we tell this to His Majesty?" Heavenly Hearing asked. Earthly Sight shook his head and grunted. Aren't you afraid of death? If we tell His Majesty, both of us are going to die. Heavenly Hearing frowned and his ears curled up. He said with a low voice, His Majesty ordered us to investigate the case, and Celestial Venerable Yu's death is no small matter. He is a Celestial Venerable after all, the first Celestial Venerable. Furthermore, he was the Celestial Venerable that was blessed by all of the gods. His death will probably create huge trouble. Earthly Sight only had an eye in the heart of his brows. At this moment he closed his eyes and shook his head. So what if we tell His Majesty? His Majesty will just leave it unsettled. The trouble created will only be even bigger. At that time His Majesty will just seal our mouths and get rid of us. Heavenly Hearing was instantly out of ideas. What should we do? See no evil, hear no evil. Ancient God Earthly Sight said, I'm blind and you're deaf. That will protect our lives. Ancient God Heavenly Hearing nodded his head. We can only do so. It's just Celestial Venerable Yu will have lost his life in vain. Celestial Venerable Mu transforming into Celestial Venerable Yu, imparting his technique in place of him, and even taking revenge for him. He is probably going to lose his life in vain too. What a pity, 2 Celestial Venerables lost. Ancient God Earthly Sight said with a sigh. When he took out Celestial Venerable Yu's corpse, I jumped in shock. When he transformed into Celestial Venerable Yu, I was shocked again. I didn't know what he wanted to do, but when I heard him imparting the techniques in place of Celestial Venerable Yu, I started to admire him. Ancient God Heavenly Hearing hesitated for a moment and said, In that case, how should we answer about his matters? Ancient God Earthly Sight also hesitated for a moment. See no evil, hear no evil, we are blind and deaf. We didn't see him, and we also don't know that he transformed into Celestial Venerable Yu. That's right, nothing happened here, we are unaware. After the two ancient gods finished their discussion, they immediately flew away. On the surface of the sea, half-gods roamed in the sky and on the sea surface. They locked down the area. Around Celestial Venerable Hao, half-gods surrounded him to protect him. Celestial Venerable Yu, you insist on falling out? Celestial Venerable Hao sighed and said with a smile, You know my background, you can't touch me. You suffered, but you can only endure it. Celestial Venerable Yu, you can retreat. In front of him, a half-god had the whiskers of a tiger and the scales of a dragon, and he revealed a body of half a human and half a god. He said indifferently, Even though you have suffered, your body hasn't died. You are a genius. You should be able to see and understand the current trend. You're right. Another half-god also transformed into a half-god and half-human form. He chuckled and said, When you died in the slow-winding pavilion, you should have known you can't fight Celestial Venerable Hao. Have you forgotten how you were always unable to escape from the slow-winding pavilion? Have you forgotten who used magic power to seal the slow-winding pavilion? Another half-god transformed and smiled. Even though you are the genius of the human race and you are crowned as Celestial Venerable that's blessed by all gods, you are still a human after all. It was that existence that got us to seal the slow-winding pavilion, which is why you couldn't get any help no matter how much you cried. Another half-god walked forward and smirked. Human, naturally weak. Even if you cultivate the Celestial Palace, it's still impossible for you to be a match for half-gods. You will only die here by forcing yourself to make a mistake again. This time, you will definitely not come back to life. Celestial Venerable Hao said with a smile. Celestial Venerable Yu. Qin Mu, who hadn't spoken for a long time, suddenly interrupted him. Shouldn't you call me brother or father? Celestial Venerable Hao laughed loudly. Call you brother or father? Do you know who my father is? Do you know who my brother is? Boom! Qin Mu took a step forward, and the surface of the sea exploded. Celestial Venerable Hao was astonished. Suddenly darkness loomed over his eyes. So fast! He was being surrounded by numerous half-gods, and these half-gods were followers he had chosen carefully. Every half-god had extremely powerful abilities, and there were even half-gods stronger than him. He was also a half-god himself. His bloodline was even higher than the other half-gods, so after he grew, his abilities would be stronger than the other half-gods. Yet he was only in his teenage years while the half-gods that were following him were much older. Thus, their abilities were even stronger. Yet this step of Qin Mu made him move like a phantom to his face. The other half-gods didn't have time to react. The darkness in front of his eyes wasn't because the sky suddenly turned dark. It was because Qin Mu's fist had come right into his face and blocked all of his vision. Celestial Venerable Hao's face distorted, and when Qin Mu's fist smashed his face, he could hear his nose bridge cracking. In the next instant, he heard the crisp crack from his rib. That was the first rib. Then it was the second and the third. Qin Mu's fist landed on his face and at the same time, his kneecap smashed heavily on his ribs. Two kinds of force exploded at the same time, and Celestial Venerable Hao flew backward. He still couldn't see anything in front of his eyes. Pack. He bounced up high and landed on the water surface. Then he bounced up again and landed back down once more. You dare! Numerous half-gods only reacted after, and the half-god with tiger whiskers and dragon scales roared. The blood in his body boiled, and his god might climbed upwards furiously. His aura instantly became incomparably terrifying and violent. However, before his attack could even land, a sword light had already pierced through his head. Qin Mu pulled out his sword, and his body bent at a weird angle. Avoiding the attack behind him, he grabbed the hand of another half-god, and that half-god had scales all over his hands. The scales flew up and swirled to slice at Qin Mu. The sword in Qin Mu's hand suddenly transformed into knife light, and the knife light crisscrossed. That half-god held onto his neck, but the head on his neck had already rushed into the sky via his vigorous qi and blood. The other half-gods were all surrounding Qin Mu and shouted angrily in unison. Seawater rose up like a water pillar, and the huge figures attacked towards Qin Mu all together. Return of Thousand Palms. Around Qin Mu's body, countless after images of him were formed, and they suddenly merged. Beyond the strange peaks of heavens. Boom! His skill from his martial path exploded, and the huge figures went flying in all directions, making huge waves as they crashed into the sea. Qin Mu wiped away the blood on the corner of his mouth and stepped towards Celestial Venerable Hao, who had smashed into the sea. The sea suddenly split apart, and the half-gods hiding underwater opened their huge mouths to bite at him. Runes around Qin Mu's body swirled and his teleportation divine art was activated. The head of that half-god was suddenly teleported, and only his headless body crashed into the sea. The god's blood dyed a part of the sea red in color. In the next moment, Qin Mu's figure appeared, and he smashed through the head of that half-god with a punch. There was no blood on his body at all as he walked forward. In front, Celestial Venerable Hao's face was all bloodied, and he suppressed his injuries. He turned around to escape and shouted, "Stop him!" Swooshing sounds came from above Qin Mu's head as a half-god flapped his wings to swoop down from the sky. His speed was extremely fast and he was like a shooting star. Half-god possessed the bloodline of ancient gods, and they each had special skills in areas they were good in. The closer they got to adulthood, the stronger their battle power would be. Some half-gods weren't weaker than the ancient gods. Those half-gods that were following Celestial Venerable Hao were all the younger generation, but their abilities were pretty extraordinary. Yet when the half-god with bird wings swooped down, he instantly lost sight of Qin Mu. His neck felt cold, and then he saw his headless body crashing into the sea. What is this divine art? I have never seen it before. Qin Mu continued forward, and his gaze was fixed on Celestial Venerable Hao, who was stumbling away miserably. The sea in front exploded, and a divine elephant that was completely white came sprinting towards him on the sea. Two huge waves were being raised to the left and right, and each wave was 300 yards tall. The divine elephant trumpeted, and its sound was deafening. He charged towards Qin Mu at a terrifying speed. Qin Mu raised both of his arms, and a knife light came slashing down to slice the divine elephant in half. He kept on sprinting and ran past the two halves of the elephant. Celestial Venerable Hao turned back to look at this sight, and he was endlessly astonished. The sea surged and a huge fish soared into the sky, controlling the seawater to press down on Qin Mu. The sea suddenly trembled and covered Qin Mu. Dead! Dead! The huge fish was incomparably delighted and shouted. Other half-gods also came flying over and landed on the sea surface. Divine light came out from their eyes as they looked for signs of Qin Mu. Celestial Venerable Hao also stopped and spat out the blood in his mouth. Right at this moment, A pitch-black gate suddenly appeared on the sea and started spinning furiously. It swept past the bodies of the half-gods, and their souls fell into Yudu. They crashed into the sea as they turned into corpses. Celestial Venerable Hao's pupils shrank. He only saw Qin Mu's head popping out from the sea before he gradually rose up. Even if he was in the sea, he was still walking over calmly. Qin Mu's body grew taller and taller as he appeared on the sea surface once again. You aren't Celestial Venerable Yu. Celestial Venerable Yu doesn't have such astonishing divine arts. Celestial Venerable Hao moved back and stared at Qin Mu. The other half-gods came and spewed fire while some shot powerful beams from their gazes. Some had feathers as swords and knives, but to Qin Mu, these divine arts from the primitive people were simply too superficial. Before these divine arts could even reach him, the owner of the divine art would already have been slaughtered by him. In this era there was no divine art that was worth his time. Even with godlike abilities, other divine arts were full of flaws in his eyes. As long as the opponent attacked, they were bound to die. He continued forward, and Celestial Venerable Hao gritted his teeth and continued running. He shouted, "I know who you are. Celestial Venerable Mu." He escaped to a divine mountain and shouted loudly, "Celestial Venerable Mu wants to kill me." The turtle carrying the divine mountain turned around and looked at Qin Mu, who was walking over step by step. He said with a solemn voice, "Celestial Venerable Yu, even though you have remarkable abilities, this is the Jade Pool. Do you know who Celestial Venerable Hao's mother is? If you knew." Qin Mu raised his hand, and countless swords traveled underwater at a rapid speed. That old turtle was furious and sneered. How dare a pearl the size of a grain shine in front of the sun? Opening calamity. A beam of sword light was brilliant like a pillar. It stretched over a dozen miles and pierced through the heart of the turtle's brows before it shot out from the back of the island. The divine mountain sank. Qin Mu recalled his swords, and they formed a circular ball that spun quickly on the sea surface. Celestial Venerable Hao, who was on the divine mountain, hurriedly jumped and escaped. Runes swirled around Qin Mu as he flashed and closed the distance between them. Suddenly, a cryptic aura came over and caused the space in the surroundings to tremble continuously. Celestial Venerable Hao was delighted and shouted loudly, "Mother!" Qin Mu's pupils contracted. He stretched his hands to point out, and the speed of the sword pellet instantly increased by more than 10 times. All of his magic power, all of his essence, energy and spirit were fused into this sword. He had to kill Celestial Venerable Hao before that incomparably strong existence descends. This sword was none other than Qin Mu's first form of the Calamity Sword, Opening Calamity Sword. This was his strongest sword skill. The speed of the sword pellet spun faster and faster. This sword pellet was a spirit weapon he had refined not long ago. The sword pellet spun at an astonishing speed and flew close to the sea surface. Countless fine swords leaped out from the sword pellet, and the tip of the swords were all pointing at Celestial Venerable Hao. Behind the sword pellet, Qin Mu was exploding with full force and rushing ahead. His magic power poured into the sword pellet, and the vital qi between his flying swords connected. The swords presented countless runes that weaved and changed continuously. The runes were like sparks as they leaped from flying sword to flying sword. The positions of the flying swords also continuously changed, and they were like fish in the sea. The flying swords were silver-colored fish that shuttled up and down, unleashing the charm of his sword skills perfectly. In the next instant, countless flying swords seemed to be one as the runes and vital qi exhibited incomparable agility and flexibility. The swords sprinting on the sea surface transformed into a gorgeous flowing light, and that was the flying swords transforming to display the most basic 18th sword form perfectly. Looking from afar, this was a flying sword that had an astonishing length. It was a very simple sword move, and that was a stab. Looking at it in detail, countless transformations were hidden in this simple move. This was the first time he had executed this sword move so perfectly since he created the Calamity Sword. Yet the space in that instant suddenly becomes sticky and dense. Space originally had no resistance. The resistance was from the air itself. Yet, in this instance, there seemed to be a kind of indescribable power in the space which caused his sword skill to encounter extreme resistance. Qin Mu exerted his force to stab forward, and his opening Calamity Sword also stabbed forward easily like it was slicing bamboo. The tip of the sword was closing in on Celestial Venerable Hao. Yet Qin Mu felt that the resistance was also increasing sharply. This kind of power wasn't purely the power of divine art. It seemed to be the pressure from an extraordinary rule. Qin Mu had encountered this kind of pressure when he had entered the southern heavenly gate of bullfighting world. The pressure from the southern heavenly gate came from all directions, and it affected all areas of his corporeal body and primordial spirit. It was even affecting his opening calamity sword. It was Qin Mu's first time encountering an instance where his sword path divine art was being suppressed. The sword tip of opening calamity sword was still stabbing forward, but its speed was becoming slower and slower. When it came to the face of Celestial Venerable Hao, the speed of the sword light had already become as slow as the crawling of a snail. And at this moment, sunlight soared out from Celestial Venerable Hao's back. There were thousands of rays gathering from all directions. That wasn't Celestial Venerable Hao's mother descending personally. It was just her projection. Her true body should have still been in the celestial heavens. She didn't descend personally. That was a goddess, and around her body sunlight floated like sashes. They were extraordinary gorgeous. Her body was graceful, and it was different from Goddess of Heavenly Yin's wild and boorish dressing. Her makeup was very exquisite. Sunlight formed sashes to float around her, and other than being able to cover her body well, it also revealed her curves very well. On the other hand, Goddess of Heavenly Yin used a rough method of utilizing sunlight to block her private parts while revealing other parts of her body. Goddess of Heavenly Yin also only had 1 or 2 accessories on her, while this goddess had numerous accessories on her. Furthermore, they were all very exquisite. There were over a dozen accessories. There were hairpins, a jade tassel headdress, a necklace that had pearls like moons around her collarbone, a jade bracelet on her wrist, rings on her fingers, and pearls that were like little bells on her ankle. Celestial Venerable Hao stood in front of his sword light and gave a sigh of relief. Qin Mu was still trying his best to advance, and he released the power of opening calamity. He was trying to break the suppression of that goddess. Yet it was still difficult for this sword to advance forward. The sword only advanced an inch, and it reached the maximum of Qin Mu's power. Celestial Venerable Hao revealed a smile. Celestial Venerable you are impudent. The apparition of the goddess spoke, and her voice was loud and clear, penetrating deep into his heart. It had an apathetic tone to her calm and tranquil voice. You have just come back from the dead. You should trembling with fear as if walking on thin ice. Have you forgotten that you were suppressed by a force before you died? The slow winding pavilion, that's where my sister stayed. Don't you know that's my power? Qin Mu was still struggling to move forward, and he was full of strength. He had to kill Celestial Venerable Hao. That goddess frowned, failing to appreciate my kindness. Hao or send him on his way. Don't leave any trouble behind this time. Destroy the corpse completely. Celestial Venerable Hao bowed and expressed his thanks. He walked around the sword light that was 10 miles long. The sword light was fixed in the air as if it were frozen. Celestial Venerable Hao was finally at ease as he walked towards Qin Mu, who was 10 miles away. He said with a smile, "But mother, he isn't Celestial Venerable you." That goddess was astonished and turned her head to look at Qin Mu, but she couldn't see through Qin Mu's disguise. Celestial Venerable Hao felt very good. He is Celestial Venerable Mu. The true Celestial Venerable you is probably still in the coffin and buried underground. The Celestial Venerable Mu that His Majesty has just bestowed the title on? That goddess nodded her head and said, "His divine art sure is different from the rest. It has all kinds of unimaginable marvel." Celestial Venerable Hao walked to the center of the 10-mile sword light and said, he used a strange and marvelous technique to change his face to look like Celestial Venerable you. Celestial Venerable you also passed down the method to become a god to him before he died, allowing him to pose as Celestial Venerable you. However, what I want to know is if his original face is his true face or not. I suspect the face of Celestial Venerable Mu is also a fake face. That goddess revealed a smile. My son is clever. If you kill him, he will have no choice but to reveal his true appearance. Mother has already suppressed him. Feel free to attack. Right at this moment, the sword light suddenly shrunk. The 10 miles of sword light suddenly shrunk into a ball and stopped right in front of Celestial Venerable Hao. Celestial Venerable Hao was stunned and felt his blood ran cold. When the sword light suddenly shrunk, it made him feel as though he was being stared at by an incomparably fierce ancient god. He felt like he had fallen into a slaughterhouse. Qin Mu was 5 miles away and was frozen in place by that goddess. He couldn't move and his teeth were crunching loudly as he clenched them. Blood was flowing from the corner of his lips. The sword pellet moved. Qin Mu suddenly gave off an astonishing roar. Raising Calamity. That goddess was astonished and hurriedly increased her magic power to press down on the sword pellet. Her power was incomparably huge and copious, so she instantly shackled the sword pellet. However, the strange thing was that even though the sword pellet was suppressed, flying swords could still fly out from the sword pellet. That goddess suppressed once again. But she couldn't suppress those twitching sword lights no matter what. Those sword light flew right at Celestial Venerable Hao. Celestial Venerable Hao moved back quickly, and those sword lights skipped on a strange course. That was a sword skill that didn't belong to any of the 18 sword skills. Even the apparition of ancient gods couldn't suppress it. PSSH. Celestial Venerable Hao's body got pierced through by the sword light and bloody holes opened up in him. The second form of Calamity Sword. Raising Calamity Sword. After opening Calamity, it was Raising Calamity. Raising the calamity to kill the person. Under the apparition of this ancient god, under the situation where he was completely helpless to fight back, Qin Mu finally comprehended the second chapter of the sword path. He had taken another step forward on this path of the sword. Not only that, his sword skill had finally shown the 19th basic sword skill, pushing the sword path of the world another step forward. BL. It sprayed out from Celestial Venerable Hao's body, and the unpredictable course of the Raising Calamity Sword had broken through all suppression. The sword move was strange and unpredictable, so he couldn't defend himself at all. Even that goddess couldn't do anything about those sword light, much less him. In this era, not even the 14 sword forms were created, much less the 19th sword form. At the same time, the apparition of that goddess smacked towards Qin Mu. Since she couldn't restrain those sword lights, she would just have to smack Qin Mu to death first. That would naturally stop Qin Mu's attack. Her palm force was incomparably fast. When her palm pressed down, the sea suddenly sank in down a radius of 100 miles. A huge handprint appeared. Also, at the same time, she saw another young man stepping on the sea surface to rush here. The surface of the sea exploded continuously under his feet. That young man ran, and his hands moved up and down. Countless divine arts swirled around him, and he rushed towards Qin Mu as he toppled the mountains and overturned the seas. Too weak. That goddess disregarded him when a huge fist suddenly filled the entirety of heaven and earth. Before that young man's divine art could reach, that fist collided with her palm with a loud bang. The jade pool shook, and the petals of countless lotuses were shaken off. Huge old turtles carrying divine mountains on their backs were also thrown into midair, and they struggled helplessly. Demoness, old Master Nyoben is right here. With a shout, the old bull transformed into a bull-headed god with mean and lean muscles. He crashed into the surface of the sea. The seawater churned and shattered the countless divine arts from Founding Emperor, throwing Qin Mu, Founding Emperor, and Celestial Venerable Hao into the sky and far away. Founding Emperor moved his body in the air with difficulty. He leaped and caught up with Qin Mu, grabbing him into his embrace. On the other side, a beam of sunlight swept Celestial Venerable Hao away and blocked that terrifying impact. Celestial Venerable Hao was bleeding from all of his orifices. There were thousands of holes in his body, and they were wounds caused by the strange and unpredictable Raising Calamity Sword. Those rays of sunlight tunneled into his body and sealed his wounds, stopping him from bleeding. The sunlight then sent him to the Jade Pavilion, which was far away. Celestial Venerable Hao laid there motionlessly. Founding Emperor carried Qin Mu and rushed out frantically. Even though Qin Mu, who was in his embrace, had all of his bones shattered, his flesh and blood were squirming continuously. The shattered bones were being discharged, and new bones were being formed. Still not dead under that kind of pressure? Founding Emperor was astonished. "My sword," Qin Mu said weakly. "Screw your sword." Founding Emperor was furious and scolded. "I told you not to create trouble. If I wasn't perceptive and didn't call Senior Nyoben to come to look for you in the Jade Sea, you would have been long dead. Qinmu revealed a smile. You are now like a living person, I'm very happy. Founding Emperor was slightly stunned. He also revealed a smile. Stop talking, heal yourself. Qinmu opened up his palm and beckoned behind him. Countless fine sword lights flew over and collided to form a sword pellet that flew with them. The sword pellet closed in quickly. Let us go kill Celestial Venerable How. Qinmu coughed up blood and said weakly, he's almost dead, I just need to stab him once more. Compared to him, I feel you should be more worried about our lives. Founding Emperor sighed and saw more and more half-gods in the surroundings. He said with a soft voice, you don't have to kill him. I will personally end his life in the future to take revenge for Celestial Venerable You. Now I'm just worried about how we can escape. Qinmu suddenly shed a tear and turned his head over. He thought to himself, old ancestor, you didn't manage to. I don't even know if you are still alive. I once thought that you should fight fiercely and even die on the battlefield. However, I hope you are alive in Carefree Village even more now. Even though Founding Emperor was his old ancestor, Qinmu had truly got to know him during these few days, and in just these few days, he was able to see Founding Emperor's character. He would risk his life to save a person he had met for a month, a person who kept bickering with him, let alone the subordinates that had followed him for 20,000 years. Let alone those people of Founding Emperor era. Such a person wouldn't hide in Carefree Village and live a carefree life. This was his nature. There was no logic, no trickery, and no benefits. It was his nature. The reason why Founding Emperor was loved by his people was because of such a nature. The charm of such a person was the reason he could become Founding Emperor. If you didn't hide in Carefree Village, in that case you... Qinmu was solemn. He used the creation technique to heal himself. The pressure from that ancient goddess apparition had still injured him. Even though the paths, skills, and divine art of this era were exceptionally rough, the difference in power wasn't something divine arts could make up for. The half-gods in the jade pool flooded towards them, and there were more and more of them. Founding Emperor frowned. There were simply too many half-gods. He carried the injured Qinmu, and it was already good enough for Qinmu to be able to safeguard his life. He truly had no hands to deal with these half-gods. You can just put me on your back, Qinmu said weakly. Founding Emperor carried him on his back. Qinmu's hands had already recovered, so he could grab onto his shoulders. Founding Emperor's hands were free. The speed which he executed his divine arts was extremely fast, and with a flip of his hands, countless small divine arts came flying out. To him, these half-gods were covered in flaws, and as long as there were flaws, he could easily kill them. Yet more and more half-gods came flooding over. They were in the sky, on the sea, under the sea, to his left and right, they were everywhere. Founding Emperor never cultivated 3 heads and 6 arms before, so he was also unable to make ends meet. Lend me your sword. Founding Emperor's forehead was full of sweat as he found it harder and harder to advance. Qinmu had already replaced more than half of his bones, and was currently growing new ones. When he heard his words, he asked, how many swords do you use? Just one is enough. Qinmu's heart stirred, and the carefree sword came flying out of his Taotai sack. It landed in Founding Emperor's hand. Founding Emperor held the sword in his hand and was slightly stunned. He praised, this sword of yours is remarkable, it's like a part of my body in my hand. It moves according to how I will it. Great sword, great sword. I would also want to refine such a divine sword in the future. He wielded the sword and moved. The carefree sword gave off a clear shrill in his hands. The sword seemed to be excited. It seemed to be trembling and crying. Even Qinmu had never executed the power of the carefree sword. And yet now, the carefree sword was exploding forth with stronger and stronger power in Founding Emperor's hand. Founding Emperor's sword skills were extremely exquisite, and he was also a person who had entered the path with the sword. The power of the carefree sword increased furiously, and the sword lights moved unhindered through the air. They were like light and lightning. In an instant, it was as if night had fallen on the jade pool, and the sword lights were like snow-white light tearing apart the darkness. In the sky, in the sea, on the sea, blood sprayed out like flowers blooming. With a sword in hand, no one could stop Founding Emperor. Qinmu looked at this sight and was captivated. The carefree sword was Founding Emperor's sword to begin with, and he could only use the sharpness of this sword to kill his opponents. However, in Founding Emperor's hands, it was as if the sword had awakened. With the sword in hand, Founding Emperor was magnificent. Suddenly, a world-shaking explosion rang out. Qin looked back and saw Nyo Sanduo shattering the apparition of that goddess. The old bull leaped and landed in front of Founding Emperor in the next instant. With a loud roar, he gave off a vibration like a huge bell and churned the seawater. Ancient gods got blown away by the hurricane he raised from his roar. The old bull shrunk his body, and he had a worried expression. We have created quite big trouble. Those ancient gods are flying over. I can't handle so many of them, I definitely can't. Qin let out a shaky breath and said, we still have a place to go. Don't move, let me cast my spell. Both of them stopped moving. The upper half of Qin body had already recovered. He instantly executed his vital qi, and countless runes swirled around them. The runes crossed one another and began to swirl faster and faster. Far away from the celestial palaces, ancient gods were currently hurrying over. Great Sun Sovereign flapped his wings and had the fastest speed. He shouted from afar, "You again! Golden Commander Nyo Ben! You wreaked havoc in the celestial heavens earlier, and you still aren't satisfied that His Majesty has given you an official position. Let's see how you clean up your mess this time. God Execution Stage still hasn't had a drink of blood, so you shall be the first." He moved like flickering light and passing shadows as he attacked quickly. The sky was filled with fire, yet at this moment, light flashed as the teleportation divine art burst forth. Qin Founding Emperor, and Nyo Sanduo vanished without a trace. Great Sun Sovereign grabbed emptiness and hurriedly flapped his wings up from the sea surface. His wings covered 100 miles of land above the sea, and his eyes shot out two beams of white light to search the surroundings for traces of Qin and the rest. Another ancient god came rushing over and shouted, "Star Sovereign, where have those rebels gone? Those three men had a kind of secret technique and escaped." Great Sun Sovereign said, "Let the Star Sovereigns of Heavenly Cycle Stars Division form an inescapable net. Get them to cover the Jade Pool so they have no place to run." The stars in the sky originally couldn't be seen, yet they suddenly became radiant now. Countless stars became larger and larger until they formed a Milky Way. Stars shone in the Milky Way, and the gods executed all kinds of techniques. The rays in the sky were like rain, and they warped and weaved in the sky, sealing the Jade Pool. On those stars, majestic gods stretched their heads forward, and their faces were high up and ancient-looking. Gazes fell from the sky and searched around. They searched for a long time to no avail, and Great Sun Sovereign was also out of ideas. Where are heavenly hearing and earthly sight generals? These three people are extremely daring and behave unscrupulously. No matter where they run to, they definitely won't be able to hide from them. After a moment, an ancient god came to report. Heavenly hearing and earthly sight generals have gone to investigate and search for the murderer that killed Celestial Venerable You under His Majesty's orders. They have already searched their way down to the lower bound. Great Sun Sovereign stared with his eyes wide open. They searched their way down to the lower bound? Instead of searching the Jade Pool, what have these two fellows searched their way down to the lower realm for? Who is good enough to assassinate Celestial Venerable You in the lower bound? Other than half-gods who have the ability to, could it be half-gods? He suddenly shut up and gave two coughs. Golden Commander Nyo Ben, wreaking havoc in the Jade Pool twice, plotting to murder Celestial Venerable. How? I have to report this to Celestial Emperor. I'll go to Numinous Sky Hall first, wait here for me and continue to search. You have to dig that guy out. He left in a hurry. And at this moment, light flashed as Qin Founding Emperor, and Nyo Sanduo appeared in a huge hall with extraordinary and imposing style. Qin coughed repeatedly and hurriedly suppressed his cough in fear of alarming others. His face turned beet red from stifling himself. Where is this place? The old bull and Founding Emperor moved into a defensive stance and looked around cautiously. This hall was completely in vermilion red. The pillars, the floor, the walls, the ceiling, everything was red. Even the heavy curtains and screens were red. Vermilion birds were carved on the walls, and there were also all kinds of marvelous vermilion bird markings on the ground. Even the screens and curtains were embroidered with vermilion birds soaring in the sky. There were also sights of vermilion birds eating demon bugs and fighting divine dragons. This is Vermilion Bird Palace. Qin Mu let out a shaky breath. This is where Zhu Keier stays. We know her, so we can hide over here. The old bull was at ease. He said with a smile, that Zhu Keier who has the same name as South Deity Zhu Kei? That lady is born beautiful, but how daring of her to even use the name of South Deity. She's really not scared of dying early. Founding Emperor had a weird expression and stared at a mural. He was speechless for a long time. He suddenly asked, is this woman in the mural Zhu Keier? The old bull walked forward, and he indeed saw the woman named Zhu Keier in the mural. He said with a smile, that's her, what a daring woman. Founding Emperor had an even weirder expression and reminded, Senior Niu Ben, for her to attend the banquet with Earth Count and Heaven Duke, her position should be no lower than them. The old bull looked at the mural, and it was the picture of a banquet. Earth Count and Heaven Duke were both there, and they were seated in front. That woman named Zhu Keier was actually sitting beside as well. What you mean is? The old bull probed. Founding Emperor sighed. She is South Deity. We have barged into South Deity's palace. We are walking right into a trap. And this place is still. He looked past the screen, and behind the screen was a vermilion red jade couch. The jade couch had the shape of a nest, and it was blazing with sacred fire. Veins popped out on Founding Emperor's forehead, and he muttered, this is still South Deity's chamber. I think we can think of how to die. The old bull shuddered and looked at Qin Mu helplessly. You have a way to deal with this, am I right? You always have a way. Qin Mu was about to say something when he heard voices coming from outside. Zhu Keier's voice drifted into their ears, and she was laughing. The celestial heavens meeting this time sure is full of twists and turns. This meeting was to determine the name of the celestial heavens, but in reality, it was just those old fellows squabbling for their own benefits. Earth Count and Heaven Duke are full of courage and aren't willing to give out the benefits of Yudu and Xuandu. The heads of the half-gods are also squabbling for more benefits. As for the name of the celestial heavens, it was just a minor matter. Goddess, you are in the celestial heavens, so you don't know how bustling the jade pool was. Goddess, the jade pool was almost destroyed from the chaos. First, Celestial Venerable Mu and Celestial Venerable Qin fought, and Niu Ben wreaked havoc on the jade pool. Then, Celestial Venerable Yu got assassinated and came back to life to fight with the half-gods and Celestial Venerable Hao. The apparition of Celestial Empress's younger sister shone down and got shattered by Golden Commander Niu Ben. It was actually so lively. I shouldn't have gone to the Celestial Heavens meeting. I should have stayed here for the show. It's even livelier now. All of the gods from heavenly cycle stars have run out. These voices gradually came closer, and they were talking about the matters in the Jade Pool meeting. Zhu Keier suddenly said, I'm a little tired, I'll be taking a rest. Dismissed. Understood. The mates fell back. Footsteps rang out, and a woman in crimson-colored clothes walked into the chamber and chuckled. How daring to dare to hide in my chambers. Do you really think I have no way of seizing you? Big sister. Qin Mu hobbled out and changed his face. He changed back into his original face and bowed. Little brother has come to seek refuge. May big sister please take me in? Zhu Keier was astonished and cried out, You are the new Celestial Venerable Mu? That's not right. You are clearly the little brother I met on the Celestial River. Why did you have Celestial Venerable Yu's face just now? Founding Emperor looked at Qin Mu and was slightly stunned. Qin Mu's face now wasn't Mu Qing's face. It was another younger and more childish-looking face. His face seemed slightly familiar. Founding Emperor was puzzled. He looks a little like me. Qin Mu revealed his true appearance and said with a bitter tone, Celestial Venerable Yu is dead. The murderers are Celestial Venerable Hao and Yin Chaojin. To take revenge for him, I have transformed into Celestial Venerable Yu's appearance. And now, I've offended Celestial Venerable Hao's mother, so I have no choice but to seek refuge at Big Sister's place. Zhu Keier suddenly chuckled, and flames flowed around her body. She said with a smile, You have offended that little slut, you are dead. You are all going to die. However, you don't have to be afraid, she won't dare to come over here. You can just hide here for a few days. I'll send all of you down to the lower bound when things die down. She suddenly became excited and giggled. Celestial Venerable Hao's mother is Celestial Empress's younger sister. You guys don't know about Celestial Venerable Hao's background, right? Celestial Empress and her sister are twins. Both of them look the same. When Celestial Emperor married the older sister, he wanted to marry the younger sister too, but Celestial Empress wasn't having any of it. Come, guess what do you think happened next? Founding Emperor had a weird expression and thought to himself, this South deity is different from what I imagined. Why is she so interested in Celestial Emperor's private affairs? Qin Mu was still treating his injuries and asked curiously, Big sister, what happened next? Founding Emperor had an even weirder expression. This Mu Qing is also very curious. The old bull was also stretching his ears, and it was obvious that he was also very curious. Afterwards, when Celestial Venerable you opened up the spirit embryo divine treasure, and allowed the people of the world to be able to cultivate, Celestial Emperor said that the descendants of ancient gods couldn't cultivate, so he was afraid the descendants of ancient gods would be bullied by the humans in the future. He thought of an idea to create a half-god and half-human, letting him find a path for the half-gods. This half-god and half-human came to be Celestial Venerable Hao. Zhu Keir smiled and said, and the one that gave birth to this half-god was the sister of Celestial Empress. Come, guess, who do you think Celestial Venerable Hao's father is? Qin Mu's gaze flickered and he hurried her. Big sister, tell me quickly, the suspense is killing me. Zhu Keir's voice was light and fast as she giggled. Celestial Emperor went to reincarnate as a human and finally had his wish of making love with his beauty. Qin Mu and the old bull stared with their eyes wide open. Founding Emperor also gave a look of disbelief, and the three of them were speechless. Zhu Keir saw their expression and was very satisfied. After this matter got blown up, Celestial Empress was very unhappy, and she created quite a ruckus. Celestial Emperor had to give up on his human body and return to the celestial heavens. Celestial Empress created another ruckus. Many people know about this matter in the celestial heavens, but no one said anything. Afterward, when Celestial Venerable Hao rose to power, he was indeed remarkable. However, Celestial Empress treated Celestial Venerable you very well. Can you guess the reason behind this? The old bull immediately said, Celestial Empress wanted to take revenge on Celestial Emperor, so she slept with Celestial Venerable you. Founding Emperor and Qin Mu coughed, and their faces turned red. There wasn't a need to go so far. She wanted to support Celestial Venerable you and beat down on her sister and Celestial Emperor's son. Zhu Keir gave some thought and became curious. Does Celestial Empress have that kind of thought though? Maybe she really did sleep with Celestial Venerable you, we can't say for sure. That's right. Why does Celestial Venerable Hao want to kill Celestial Venerable you? Could it be that Celestial Emperor realized Celestial Empress cheated, and got Celestial Venerable Hao to do his work? Qin Mu couldn't resist breaking her train of thought. Big sister, it was Celestial Empress sister that used her magic power to cover the slow-winding pavilion, making Celestial Venerable you unable to escape or even call for help. Zhu Keir's eyes lit up. Discord between sisters? Vying for affection? Killing one to warn the rest? What great drama! Qin Mu blinked his eyes and thought to himself, this sister's thoughts seem to be slightly different from mine. I feel that the reason Celestial Venerable Hao wanted to get rid of Celestial Venerable you was that his reputation was becoming too great. Only by getting rid of Celestial Venerable you could he become the leader of the half-gods and the humans. When the half-gods and the humans develop in the future, he will have hope of aspiring to the throne. Zhu Keir obviously didn't think that way. She was still excited over the concubines of Celestial Emperor fighting each other, and it was completely different from what Qin Mu and the rest were thinking. Founding Emperor's expression dimmed. Celestial Venerable you was a genius of an era. It's a pity for him to suffer just like this. Whether or not Celestial Emperor partook in this we don't know. Zhu Keir's earlier excitement was kept under control, and she said indifferently, if the son of Celestial Emperor couldn't be compared to a human, wouldn't that be telling the people of the world that the bloodline of ancient gods is inferior to an ordinary human? Qin Mu and Founding Emperor's heart trembled violently, and they were dumbfounded. Zhu Keir wiped the solemn expression off her face and said with a smile, good brother, just stay here at Big Sister's place first. I shall go out and take a look at the show. The little slut must be creating quite a ruckus now. Qin Mu stared with his eyes wide open. Zhu Keir was obviously wishing for the whole world to be in chaos as she quickly rushed out. This big sister is even more excited than me. The person involved in all this. Qin Mu shook his head and said to Founding Emperor, "Was what Sister Keir said earlier true? Did Celestial Emperor really incite Celestial Venerable How?" Founding Emperor shook his head. "I've never seen Celestial Emperor before, so I don't know his character and can't make a good deduction. However, there is this possibility. If what South Deity said is true, Celestial Emperor is playing with fire. Celestial Venerable Hao's ambition is extremely huge, and when the half-gods and all of the races after the beginning of heaven develop, his position wouldn't be secure anymore." Qin Mu frowned. The old bull jumped in shock and hurriedly said, "Celestial Emperor has such remarkable abilities, and is even the birth father of Celestial Venerable Hao. Would Celestial Venerable Hao have that kind of ambition?" Founding Emperor said, "Ever since the ancient times, when the Emperor lives too long, the Crown Prince would find it harder to sit still and would want the Emperor to die sooner. Since Celestial Emperor won't age and die, the only way for Celestial Venerable Hao to take the throne is to make a move on Celestial Emperor. Furthermore, after the different races and the half-gods rise in power, they would request for more benefits. Celestial Venerable Hao will have no choice but to make a move then." Qin Mu's heart stirred slightly and he said, "I was thinking Celestial Venerable, you told us the first thing was to let all races be able to cultivate and be equal to gods. What could be the second thing he wanted to say?" Founding Emperor looked over, and when they looked at each other in the eyes, they knew what each other was thinking. Founding Emperor said, "If Celestial Venerable you didn't die, it might be possible. Now that Celestial Venerable you is dead, the other Celestial Venerables wouldn't be his match. Celestial Venerable Hao would be in charge of the power of the half-gods, and he also has quite a number of followers from the different races. Firstly, he has such a big power, and secondly, with his status as the son of Celestial Emperor, no one can match up to him. He would lead one of the heavens in the 3 heavens of Dragon Han, and it would be the strongest one." Qin Mu said, "The other Celestial Venerables, none of them will be his match. There's still one more party to the 3 heavens of Dragon Han, so where is this party from?" Founding Emperor shook his head. "This is probably not what we should be worrying about." The old bull was muddle-headed from listening to them. "What are you guys talking about? Aren't you talking about the second thing that Celestial Venerable you wanted to say? Why are the 3 heavens of Dragon Han dragged into this?" Qin Mu explained, "The second thing that Celestial Venerable you wanted to say is after imparting the method of immortality, there will be more and more gods from the human race and the other races. They would attract fear and get beat down sooner or later. He plans to fight for benefits for all the races, and this is the 3rd pole in the 3 heavens of Dragon Han." The old bull said with a smile, "Wouldn't it be settled by forming a little celestial heavens? Who is going to form it?" Qin Mu was worried. "We will be returning to our own era in just a few days' time, and no one would be staying back." "No one can stay back either." Founding Emperor nodded his head. "Among the 9 Celestial Venerables, Celestial Venerable Yu is dead, Celestial Venerable Qin and Celestial Venerable Mu are missing, and the rest of the Celestial Venerables are no match for Celestial Venerable Hao. Furthermore, these few Celestial Venerables are all like scattered sand. It's hard for them to form the 3rd pole." Qin Mu was silent for a moment and said, "I have an idea to form the 3rd pole. However, after the 3 heavens of Dragon Han, exactly which side is the winner?" Founding Emperor's heart jumped, and he looked at him. Qin Mu continued to say, "Was the winner the 1st pole, Ancient Gods Celestial Heavens, or the 2nd pole, Half-Gods Celestial Heavens, or even the 3rd pole, that extraterritorial Celestial Heavens that destroyed Crimson Light Era and High Emperor Era? Which pole is it among the 3 poles?" Founding Emperor was silent. Now was the beginning of Dragon Han Era. It was the 1st year of Dragon Han, so the 2nd pole and the 3rd pole had not yet appeared. No one knew which side had achieved the final victory through the incomparably long-lasting years of Dragon Han Era, and become the behemoth that rules over all. "Just nurse your injuries at ease." Founding Emperor revealed a smile. "History naturally has its own path. We aren't people of this era, so we don't have to consider so much. We just need to return to our own era and face all of it without fear." Qin Mu nodded his head gently, but he thought to himself, "However, we have returned to the past and become history. This third pole must be established. After a few days, his injuries healed, and Zhu Kei'er had returned to the palace. She talked excitedly to them about what she had seen in the jade pool. There is already news leaking out, she said excitedly. Celestial Venerable Hao has fainted, and he's still in a coma now. Celestial Emperor is furious, and he has given the order to investigate this case. However, there are no airtight walls in this world. Soon, news spread out that Celestial Venerable Hao murdered Celestial Venerable Yu, and thus Celestial Venerable Yu had come back to life to take revenge on Celestial Venerable Hao. Those divine arts practitioners broke into an uproar. People deduced many schemes, and the news was abuzz. There are all kinds of explanations out there. Qin Mu blinked his eyes and said, "In that case, where did the news come from?" Zhu Kei'er blushed slightly and she said, "I only spoke a little truth. I merely said that Celestial Venerable Yu was taking revenge on Celestial Venerable Hao." Founding Emperor and the old bull were unable to restrain a smile. There was also someone who smeared *T on Celestial Emperor's head and said it was Celestial Emperor who planned this murder. The rumors spread as if they were true. This wasn't said by me. Zhu Kei'er was full of smiles and jumped onto her nest. She sat in her vermilion bird sacred fire and swung her legs happily. "But I know who said it." The old bull asked curiously. "Big sister, who said it?" Qin Mu and Founding Emperor had weird expressions as they took a glance at this bull. Founding Emperor thought to himself, "Senior Niuben learns fast. Of course it's Celestial Empress." Zhu Kei'er smiled and said, "Celestial Empress is also an intelligent person and naturally knew who laid their hands on Celestial Venerable Yu. The sisters are probably fighting it out in the chambers." However, Celestial Empress sister later said it was Celestial Venerable Mu who killed Celestial Venerable Yu, and Celestial Venerable Mu had later tried to kill Celestial Venerable Hao, trying to push the blame onto little brother. However, people with a keen eye instantly knew there were many loopholes in her words. Numerous divine arts practitioners are planning to leave the celestial heavens, but the celestial heavens is tightening the security now to search all palaces for Niuben, Celestial Venerable Qin, and Celestial Venerable Mu, thus forbidding everyone from leaving. Those divine arts practitioners began to quarrel, and so they started fighting with the half-gods. "It's truly lively," she walked around excitedly and said. "The celestial heavens is in turmoil and a hideous mess. Golden guards even planned to search my vermilion bird palace and got thrown out by me. How could those brutes barge in Big Sister's celestial palace and my chamber?" Qin Mu could totally imagine this female ancient goddess throwing a fit. "However, it's about time for you guys to leave." Zhu Kei'er suddenly calmed down and took a look at Qin Mu and the rest. "I've heard the news that Celestial Emperor has requested Earth Count to make a move, and got him to check the life and death divine treasure of everyone in the world. The three of you have to be found no matter what. Since Celestial Emperor has personally invited him, Earth Count will definitely give him face. You might not know of Earth Count's magic power, but if he wanted to check on all lives, no one can hide from his eyes." Qin Mu, Founding Emperor, and the old bull were all astonished. Earth Count indeed had this ability. The Earth Count now still didn't know them, so if he found them, he would definitely catch them and bring them to Celestial Emperor. Suddenly, Qin Mu said, "When Earth Count makes a move to investigate all lives and all gods in the celestial heavens, that would be the time darkness shrouds the celestial heavens. We have indeed come to the time where we should leave." Founding Emperor and the old bull were puzzled. It was their first time returning to the past, but Qin Mu had already experienced it once. "Big sister, can you invite Celestial Venerable Ling over?" Qin Mu said, "I still have certain things I want to tell her. This is simple, I'll just get someone to summon her." Zhu Kei'er instructed her maids, and after waiting for a long time, the maid announced outside the chamber, "Goddess, Celestial Venerable Ling has arrived." Celestial Venerable Ling walked into the hall, and was slightly stunned when she saw Qin Mu and the rest. She hadn't seen Qin Mu's real face before, so she didn't recognize him. However, she recognized Founding Emperor. Celestial Venerable Ling walked up and greeted Zhu Kei'er. "Nice to meet you, Goddess Zhu Quebec." Zhu Kei'er waved her hands and said with a smile, "Stay here and talk, I'll go out and take a look. Earth Count should be making his move soon." Qin Mu's face changed, and Celestial Venerable Ling looked at him with a dazed look. She cried out, Celestial Venerable Mu. You. Qin Mu said firmly. Sister Ling, we are leaving, thus I want you to witness this and not give up hope. Celestial Venerable Ling's heart was flustered. You are leaving? Where to? What about the human race? Who is going to be the leader? Also, what about Celestial Venerable Yu? He's still in the coffin. Qin Mu revealed a smile and said softly, the world is full of evil, the human race has to be united, and all of the races after the beginning of heaven should also be united. Niu Ben Qin Kai, and I won't be able to remain in this place, we can only look back at your history. Celestial Venerable Ling was even more helpless and at a loss. Qin Mu couldn't bear to see her like this and asked in a soft voice, are you willing to join Heaven Alliance? Celestial Venerable Ling was slightly stunned. Heaven Alliance? Join Heaven Alliance, attract more capable and righteous people to join as well and form our own power. Qin Mu was about to elaborate when Zhu Keir's voice rang out from outside the chamber. Earth Count has made his move. The darkness is about to reach here. Qin Mu walked out of the palace, and Celestial Venerable Ling suddenly shouted loudly, I'm willing to. Qin Mu turned back and revealed a radiant smile. In that case, Sister Ling will be the leader of Heaven Alliance in Dragon Han era. Sister Ling, let us meet again in the future. He walked out of the hall with wide steps and far away, the darkness came pouring over like a flood, swallowing everything in its path. Qin Mu bowed to the ground to Zhu Keir. Big sister, little brother is leaving. I will never forget big sister's kindness in taking us in. The darkness poured over and swallowed his figure. According to Qin Mu's experience, traveling back to the past through the fog in the surging river only gave a half day of time. This half day didn't refer to 12 hours. It wasn't a precise timing, and instead, it was the darkness replacing the light. There was no darkness in the celestial heavens, and it was always bright like daytime. When they come here, no matter how much time passed, it would still be daytime. As long as night didn't arrive, it wouldn't even be a half day. When Earth Count made a move, that would be different. The darkness of Yudu shrouded the celestial heavens and caused the darkness to descend in an instant, thus achieving the requirements to return to the future. In the darkness, Qin Mu waved at Zhu Keir and Celestial Venerable Ling. He, founding emperor, and the old bull's figures were like pitch-black sand drawing in the flowing darkness, scattering with the wind. Celestial Venerable Ling's mind was blown, and she looked at this sight in a daze. Zhu Keir also looked like she had seen a ghost. She hurriedly came to where Qin Mu, founding emperor, and the old bull were, and she touched around. However, the three people seemed to vanish into thin air. How strange, how strange! Zhu Keir was beyond astonished. Waves were raised in Celestial Venerable Ling's heart, and she subconsciously remembered what Qin Mu had told her. Maybe sometime in the future, you will meet someone who has returned to the past through your divine art, and prove to the world that their opinion of you is wrong. Her expression was entranced, and she looked at Zhu Keir, who was still searching for them with a dazed look. Does this world really have a divine art that allows a substance to not change, not move, not transform, not increase, and not decrease? Is it created by me? The waves in her heart became incomparably strong confidence, and created a belief for her to continue her research. I will create it. In the future, Celestial Venerable Mu and Celestial Venerable Qin will come back in time through my divine art, and encourage me. I can definitely do it. She swept the setback she had received from Celestial Venerable Yu's death, and picked up her spirits once again. Qin Mu and Founding Emperor had researched for a very long time with her, and they had used their knowledge to help her pave the first step. What she had to do was continue to pave new steps, until she finally succeeded in creating an ultimate technique that would astonish the world. She bade farewell to South Deity Zhu Keir and walked towards the Jade Pool. She met Celestial Venerable Yu and Celestial Venerable Yun on the way and greeted them. Celestial Venerable Yu and Celestial Venerable Yun gave off looks of surprise, as Celestial Venerable Ling was a girl with a strange temper in their memory. She would never greet anyone. If other people greeted her and she didn't like that person, she wouldn't reply at all. And now she was actually taking the initiative to greet them. The sun had truly risen from the west. Celestial Venerable Ling, please don't leave in a hurry. Celestial Venerable Yu suddenly stopped her, and Celestial Venerable Ling stopped in her footsteps to turn around. Celestial Venerable Yu and Celestial Venerable Yun looked at each other in the eyes. and both of them came to her side. They said with a low voice, "Many things have happened in the Jade Pool meeting, and Celestial Venerable, you died. Celestial Venerable Hao got severely injured by Celestial Venerable Mu, and Celestial Emperor has ordered Celestial Venerable Mu and Celestial Venerable Qin to be arrested. However, there are too many things here." Celestial Venerable Ling listened quietly. Celestial Venerable Yu mustered her courage and suppressed her voice. "We can see that it was Celestial Venerable Hao that killed Celestial Venerable Yu, and that Celestial Venerable Mu took revenge for Celestial Venerable Yu. The rumors going around these few days aren't just empty talk. Celestial Emperor and Celestial Empress, they are all involved. The conflict between half-gods and the races has already begun. As the leader of the races, we have to be on guard." Celestial Venerable Yun on the side said, "Celestial Venerable Mu has imparted Celestial Venerable Yu's method to become a god, and the race's rising to power would only be a matter of time. Both of us have discussed this, and we feel that there are many dangers lying ahead of us. Thus, we can't be scattered anymore. We need to form an alliance for the human race, to plan for the future of the other races." Celestial Venerable Ling's heart stirred slightly. Heaven Alliance? Both of them were astonished, and they hurriedly asked, "Celestial Venerable Ling, you also have this plan? Do you also plan to establish an alliance? Heaven Alliance, did you come up with this name?" Celestial Venerable Ling shook his head. "Celestial Venerable Mu came up with this name, and Celestial Venerable Qin is also in the Heaven Alliance. I'm planning to find Celestial Venerable Yu and Celestial Venerable Hua this time, and pull them into the Heaven Alliance." Celestial Venerable Yun hurriedly said, "Celestial Venerable Yu is still okay, but Celestial Venerable Hua has a bad temper, and his mouth has no zipper. Furthermore, he is also close to Celestial Venerable Hao, so he's not suitable to join the Heaven Alliance. Where's Celestial Venerable Qin and Celestial Venerable Mu?" Celestial Venerable Yu asked. Celestial Venerable Ling revealed a smile, and she said leisurely, "They are waiting for us in the future, waiting for the day we will reunite. Let's go find Celestial Venerable Yu." The three of them walked towards the Jade Pool small construction, and Celestial Venerable Yun pondered for a moment before saying, "We need to have rules and regulations. Heaven Alliance must think about the safety of the races and only let people with outstanding aptitudes join us. We also need to test their character and prevent trouble from within." Celestial Venerable Yu said, "The rules and regulations must be set. We can't be too good to bad guys, and we can't be too bad to good guys. We can only be better to good guys and worse to bad guys. Only then can Heaven Alliance last long." Celestial Venerable Ling said, "What is the goal of Heaven Alliance? We need to establish that as well. Let us first find Celestial Venerable Yu. This era, the Golden Age, there are already signs of chaos. We need to be ready." When the darkness shrouded them, what Founding Emperor saw was different from what Celestial Venerable Ling and South Deity Zhu Ke saw. He could still see himself standing in his original spot. What was changing was the substances around him. Celestial Venerable Ling and South Deity Zhu Ke scattered like black sand in the wind. The vast and majestic celestial heavens were also scattering like a sand painting. The substance retreated, and it wasn't time that was moving forward. Celestial Venerable Ling was right. Sunlight scattered down, and all the darkness vanished. Where he was standing was no longer the celestial heavens of the ancient times. Instead, it was a piece of desolate desert, and the surging river was flowing not far away. This place was the Great Ruins, the ruins of the High Emperor era. The Great Ruins was filled with strange incidents, and the people that were lucky enough to survive the High Emperor era lived in the Great Ruins. There were also some people that lived in the outside world, surviving with difficulty. Founding Emperor looked at this sight with a dazed look, and he walked towards the surging river. He thought to himself, "Celestial Venerable Mu, we will meet again, right? That's right, I want to make a divine sword like that." Far away, numerous divine arts practitioners were searching the shores of the surging river, and when someone saw Founding Emperor from far away, he cried out in delight, "Qin Yi is over there." Everyone hurriedly came to welcome him, and in the front was an old bull. He was covered in green scales, and on the bull's back was a young farmer. He was strong and robust, but he wasn't tall. Behind him was a girl with a folded fan, and also a fisherman with two small red cuns in the basket behind him, popping their heads out. All the way at the back was a woodcutter. They ran towards Founding Emperor. and the young woodcutter was running the slowest. He panted heavily. "Wait for me, guys, wait for me. Teeny, where have you been? You sure made us spend quite a great deal of effort to find you." The farmer jumped down from the old bull's back and gave him a punch. Founding Emperor stumbled from the punch and cried out in pain. The farmer hurriedly said, "Stop acting, we have fought many times in the past, and it was only you who beat me up until I cry in pain. You have vanished for many days and fishermen tracked you here." Afterward, he couldn't find any more clues. Founding Emperor revealed a smile and said, "I mistakenly entered an inconceivable place and encountered numerous inconceivable things." Everyone circled around him and asked curiously, "What exactly is it?" Founding Emperor spaced out and suddenly shook his head. "I better not say." The old bull beside the farmer spoke. "Benefactor, now you aren't being straightforward. What can you not tell us?" Founding Emperor heard this voice, and his mind was suddenly blown. He only came back to his senses after a while, and had a ridiculous feeling when he looked at the old bull. He was even more determined not to reveal what he had encountered. Time slipped away. More and more people followed Founding Emperor, and many people became renowned in the world like Diyue Tianshu Sakura, and they all followed him. On this day, Founding Emperor Empire was established, and it was built on the ruins of the High Emperor era. They formed a god dynasty and was crowned as Founding Emperor. After the Ascension ceremony, Founding Emperor was also a little tired. He got everyone to fall back while he came to the Imperial study to read through his memorials. Right at this moment, the door to the Imperial study opened up, and a woman in green walked in. Founding Emperor raised his head, and his body trembled violently when he saw this woman in green. Celestial Venerable Qin. That woman revealed a smile. "Long time no see. I've waited for you, I've waited so painstakingly." Founding Emperor got up, and tears flowed out from his eyes. "Celestial Venerable Ling. Celestial Venerable Qin, Founding Elder of the Heaven Alliance. Welcome back to the Heaven Alliance." What Qin Mu and the old bull saw was quite similar to Founding Emperor. Qin Mu saw the substances flowing away like black sand for the second time, but it was still the first time for Nyo Sanduo, so he couldn't help clicking his tongue in wonder. The darkness faded and Qin Mu examined the surroundings. He saw that they were still in the west of Supreme Emperor Heaven, and the broken cliff was about 100 miles in front of them. The ancient god's celestial heavens from back then has already ceased to exist, and only the great ruins is left. The ancient god's celestial heavens should be buried deep underground in the great ruins, right? He looked at the land under his feet, and his heart was feeling depressed as he recalled the past. From the ancient god's celestial heavens in the ancient times, from Dragon Han era to now, exactly how many years have passed? In this long and drawn-out history, how many talents with outstanding aptitudes were buried here? They were like the stars in the sky in history, twinkling in the darkness and fading away like the substances flowing. Tingling. Carefree Sword floated around Qin Mu and danced up and down. This sword had also returned to the present with him, and it was currently singing happily. It was as if it had woken up from the dead and revived. Carefree Sword didn't follow Founding Emperor. It belonged to Qin Mu's era, so it wouldn't leave with Founding Emperor. Qin Mu caressed the sword gently, and Carefree Sword slowly moved under his fingertips. He could feel the energy hidden in the spirit of the sword. This sword of Founding Emperor came alive. "Senior Brother Sanduo, let us go." Qin Mu raised his hand, and Carefree Sword gave a light sword cry which complemented his sword pellet. Qin Mu looked into the distance and called Nyo Sanduo, who was still in a daze. He said with a smile, "Let us go, Fengdu. Sister Diyue and Heavenly King Tianshu should have already gone there and reconstructed Fengdu. I might even enter Yudu from Fengdu and meet that old friend with a devil face on the back of his head." The old bull came back to his senses and said in a daze, "This period of time was like a dream. I really don't know if what I encountered was an illusion, or if I've really returned to the past. Junior brother, after we left, what do you think happened in Dragon Han? Did Celestial Venerable Ling establish the third pole, the third celestial heavens? The three heavens of Dragon Han, who won? I don't know. I would like to know as well, what exactly happened after we left." Qin Mu moved forward with him and said, "However, traveling back in time isn't something we can control. I feel that we are closer to unveiling the truth and unveiling this part of history. Senior brother, you can return your yellow joss paper to me now. The old bull hurriedly took down the yellow joss paper and returned the yellow joss paper to him. He had a weird expression as he said, "I've beaten up founding emperor, wreaked havoc in the celestial heavens, beaten the woman of celestial emperor, beat up all kinds of ancient gods, and even an inescapable net couldn't capture me. I even met South deities UK before, and met the most ancient celestial venerables of the human race. Old master won't even believe me if I tell him. I can totally scare old master to death. And my golden commander seal is still here." He took down the commander's seal on his waist and shone it in the sunlight. He examined it closely and said with a smile, "Never did I expect that I, Nyo Sanduo, would take up an official position in the ancient god's celestial heavens. Since this commander's seal is still around, this means that this isn't a dream, it truly happened. When old master sees this commander's seal, he will definitely pee in his pants." Qin Mu looked at that commander's seal under the sunlight, and his expression changed slightly. He took out that incomparably ancient commander's seal from founding master Wei Suifeng. When two commander's seals were under the sunlight, one looked very new, and one looked very old. When light flowed through that new commander's seal, it actually managed to activate that old commander's seal as well. Numerous ancient writings and runes gradually appeared. The old marks on the commander's seal that founding master had left behind gradually faded away. The seal slowly became sparkling and translucent as though it was brand new and just forged. Qin Mu examined the writings and runes with a weird expression. They were indeed writings from the Dragon Han era, and there were only slight differences between the words on the golden commander's seal from the old bull and the words on the commander's seal. Qin Mu returned to the first year of Dragon Han, and he also had contact with the writings of that era. Even though there were differences with the writings of the future, he could still recognize most of them. The writings on the commander's seal belonged to the seal script of the god writings. It was a category of bird characters. The writings contained the marvel of the world, and there were still sects cultivating the rune path using bird characters. However, when compared to true god writings, there were still some differences. After all, it had been too long since the first year of Dragon Han, and so the god writings then had already been long lost. These two commander's seals weren't one. Golden Commander was a general that guarded the jade capital of the celestial heavens. Two words were carved with yang on the commander's seal, and they were Golden Commander. On the other hand, this commander's seal was carved using yin and wrote two words, Feathered Forest. Celestial Heavens Feathered Forest Guards? Qin Mu blinked his eyes. The feathered forest guards of which celestial heavens? There were 3 celestial heavens in the Dragon Han era, and every celestial heaven had their own feathered forest guards. Just by looking at the commander's seal that founding master had left behind, it was hard to determine which celestial heaven it was from. The runes in the commander's seal were a kind of command skill to command the gods. Command skill was a kind of formation skill that was extremely profound. People who were still skilled in order skills today were extremely few. The Reform and Eternal Peace this time, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor also didn't have any knowledge in command skills. Luckily, there was Blind, the formation expert, and he sorted out a series of command skills for the army of the Eternal Peace Empire. Why did Big Senior Brother want to leave behind this commander's seal? Where did he get it from? There must be a deep reason why. Maybe this is the commander's seal from the extraterritorial celestial heavens. As long as I know which celestial heavens it is from, I will know the true face of the extraterritorial celestial heavens. A thought suddenly sprung in Qin Mu's head. Could Big Senior Brother also have gone back into the Dragon Han era? He then shook his head. The commander's seal was very ancient. If Big Senior Brother had traveled back to the Dragon Han era and brought back the commander's seal of Feathered Forest, this seal would be brand new like the old bull's. The commander's seal had become brand new now because the old bull's commander's seal activated the command skill within, thus erasing the marks of time. However, the original commander's seal had to go through long years to become what it had looked like. Unless he traveled back to the Dragon Han era and never returned. Qin Mu had a strange feeling in his heart, but he quickly rejected that idea. That deduction was too ridiculous. If Founding Master never came back, didn't that mean he was located in some place that was forever day or forever night? How could such a place exist? There might really be a few. His expression became strange. Xuandu is always day, and the ancient god's celestial heavens is always in the day too. Yudu is always night, so there's no change in day and night. If Big Senior Brother remains in Yudu, Xuandu, or the celestial heavens, he can keep remaining in the past. Why have I thought until here? Big Senior Brother wouldn't remain in the past. He burst out into laughter and put away the feathered forest commander's seal. He walked towards the broken cliff with the old bull and thought to himself, the command skill in this rune is used to command the feathered forest guards. However, I don't know which celestial heavens these feathered forest guards are from. Maybe that celestial heavens is already wiped out and has ceased to exist. The commander's seal might have no use, but I can hand the command skill to Grandpa Blind. He can research it. The old bull avoided the surging river that was under the cliff. He seemed to be very afraid of the surging river. Senior Brother Sanduo, martial arts heavenly teacher, only wanted you to send me to Heavenly Een World. And Heavenly Een World is right under the cliff. Qinmu said with a smile, you can go back now, no need to send me any further. I shall go to Heavenly Een World to take a look first and see if Sister Due has made a decision already. The old bull hesitated for a while and shook his head. I don't really want to go back. Old Master is a very boring person, he only knows how to train every day, and I can only smoke and drink tea. When I get really bored, I will rake the land. I feel it's still better to follow you. As long as you don't create any trouble, it's much more interesting than being beside Old Master. Qinmu said with a smile. If martial arts heavenly teacher knows I kidnapped you, won't he punch me to death? The old bull laughed loudly and stood up. He crossed his hooves. He dares? The golden commander of the ancient celestial heavens in here. Does he dare to behave atrociously? Both of them laughed loudly. Qinmu walked into the Heavenly Een World with him, and Nyo Sanduo said with a smile, we met Goddess of Heavenly Een in Dragon Han Celestial Heavens. She had remarkable abilities. I wonder if Goddess of Heavenly Een still remembers us. They came to the Heavenly Een World only to see numerous scholars from Eternal Peace constructing pavilions and buildings, as though they were planning to stay here permanently. There were even some scholars practicing divine arts of the Heavenly Een World, but Goddess of Heavenly Een wasn't here. Qinmu was bewildered and asked around. One scholar replied, Cult Master, Goddess has gone to pay a visit to her old friend. She has been gone for a few days. Has Heavenly King Tianshu and Heavenly King Di come by? I've not seen them. Qinmu could only leave Heavenly Een World, muttering to himself. Goddess of Heavenly Een has gone to pay a visit to an old friend? She died in the Dragon Han era, so her old friend is most likely an ancient god. I wonder which ancient god she is paying a visit to. Nyo Sanduo lifted him up and ran all the way. Soon they reached the opposite of Supreme Emperor Heaven. Qinmu turned back to look and saw 6 to 7 huge sun ships and moon ships on Supreme Emperor Heaven. They were currently walking in the sky. And in Luofu Heaven, there were also sun ship and moon ship shining there and lighting up Luofu Heaven, allowing all things to grow. Right at this moment, there were actually several cities on both Supreme Emperor Heaven and Luofu Heaven. It must have been true god Pang Yu and Fu Riluo who had brought the remaining survivors to reconstruct their homes. Imperial Preceptor's speed sure is fast. Qinmu was full of praises. They came to Border Dragon City around the late afternoon. There were divine arts practitioners harvesting rice. Nyo Sanduo felt an itch when he saw it and ran to plow several fields of land. Qinmu called out several times before the old bull reluctantly left the fields. He said with a smile, I finally got my craving satisfied. I've been holding it back these days. They walked into the city and entered Fengdu through between life and death. They could only hear constant loud trembling sounds, and Qinmu stood on the bridge to look over. He saw the entire Fengdu shaking non-stop, and the land in the darkness was expanding continuously. Pieces of heaven and earth were being opened up one after another. Diyue, Heavenly King Tianshu, and King Yama executed their abilities to expand the land of Fengdu. Devil flames keep pouring out from the ground and connected with the river of helplessness. The ground trembled and huge mountains rose from the land. The space of Fengdu was expanding rapidly. Qinmu stared with his eyes wide open and didn't understand what he was seeing. Fengdu is the Horn of Earth Count. It's a world and also a treasure. The old bull was more knowledgeable, and he knew the reason. If the horn of Earth Count is refined into a treasure, it would have strangely huge power, and it would be an exceptional weapon. Back then, Old Master planned to pluck off a horn from Earth Count to make a knife, yet after he went Yudu, he got beaten back by Benevolent Saintly King Equal to Heaven. Benevolent Saintly King Equal to Heaven kept chasing him, but luckily, I ran very fast and carried him to Xuandu. Only then was Old Master's life saved. Qin Mu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Martial arts heavenly teacher still had such a past that couldn't be recollected? The other ability of Earth Count's horn is to transform into a vast world. The old bull continued to say, King Yama is a junior after all. He doesn't know the true power of Earth Count's horn. That original Fengdu is too small. If it could be unraveled completely, it is even larger than Supreme Emperor Heaven and Luofu Heaven. Diyue, Heavenly King Tianshu, and King Yama transformed into majestic gods that walked in the darkness. They struck out madras everywhere, and space was still expanding continuously. The land moved and the mountains shook. It was truly astonishing. Qin Mu even felt that there was a rule that was becoming stronger and stronger. That was the rule of Yudu, and even though Fengdu was just a tiny piece of Earth Count's horn, the Yudu rule contained inside was incomparably astonishing. In the past, the living realm of the dead couldn't suppress true gods and experts on the Jade Pool realm. Now, even gods on the Jade Pool realm would be suppressed and turned into skeletons. He observed in detail, and the madras skill that these three people were executing was from Yudu. Among them, Heavenly King Tianshu was still the most skillful, and he was no doubt the one who was conferred the title of Mingdu Heavenly King by Earth Count. His attainments in Yudu were indeed profound and unpredictable. Heavenly King Tianshu carried Imperial Gate Divine Knife as he raised his hands and kicked his legs while radiating with aggressiveness. Tianshu is drunk. Qin Mu took a look and said very confidently, if he isn't drunk, he wouldn't have such aggressiveness. Diyue and King Yama were a little out of practice when they executed the madras skills, so it was obvious that Tianshu had just imparted them the madras skills. They had learned it not long ago, so they couldn't execute it as they wished. King Yama is skilled in the paths, skills, and divine arts after all, so it's natural that he can learn Heavenly King Tianshu's madras skill. However, why was Sister Diyue able to learn it as well? Qin Mu was bewildered and asked, Senior Brother Sanduo, why is Sister Di able to execute all kinds of divine arts? Is she an overlord body as well? The old bull shook his head. What kind of overlord body is she? The number one Heavenly King has a special spirit body. It's the body of paradise that has no attributes at all. Rumors say that the body of paradise is the spirit body that has the bloodline of Heaven Duke. Thus, no matter what technique they learn, they can easily master it. Back then, Founding Emperor was full of anticipation for her, and spent a great deal of effort to make the four deities take her in as their disciple. The body of paradise that possesses the bloodline of Heaven Duke? Qin Mu was bewildered and immediately took off the willow leaf on the heart of his brows. His undying God consciousness rushed into the Qin word land and asked, Heaven Duke, do you know about the body of paradise? The old man with white brows and white beard instantly became alarmed. Qin boy, what do you know? Qin Mu hurriedly pulled back his undying God consciousness and pasted the willow leaf back on the heart of his brows. He smiled and said, It's said that Heaven Duke is impartial like Earth Count, but it seems that he also has past events that can't be looked back upon. Other than the body of paradise, there's also the body of Netherworld. The old bull continued to say, this body of Netherworld would be related to Earth Count. Rumors say it has the bloodline of Earth Count. These two bloodlines are both extremely rare. The number one Heavenly King is the body of paradise, and Founding Emperor planned to find a body of Netherworld, but he could never find it. Qin Mu cried out, Earth Count? Earth Count also has such a past. The old bull shook his head and said, As for the exact situation, I don't know, I just heard of such a spirit body. Qin Mu composed himself and felt something crumbling in his heart. Suddenly, the darkness in the river of helplessness under the bridge churned, and a beautiful face gradually appeared. She looked at Qin Mu, who was on the bridge. Qin Mu looked down the bridge and saw the long snake tail of that beautiful woman. She was swaying her tail in the darkness and the flames. Qin Mu's heart jumped, and he was at ease in the next instant. He said with a smile, Luli. Qin Fengqing. That beauty also revealed a smile. You are looking for my brother? Qin Mu said with a smile. Wait a minute. Let me call my brother out to meet you.